We'll call to order the June 4th Benton County Board meeting. We'll start with Pledge Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Sure. Commissioner Schlangen.
Here.
Commissioner Heinen.
Here.
Commissioner Kapinski.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Pop.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Approve the agenda, Monty.
We have no changes.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion for approval of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Announcement. County board meetings are broadcast live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so that viewers can hear you. The county board observes Robert's Rules of Order for its meetings, so please obtain the board's chair consent before addressing the county board. Public comments are generally reserved for the open forum segment or public hearing. However, public comment or other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the board chair. As we begin today, please turn off your cell phones or turn them vibrate. Thank you. Open forum? Nothing. All right. Consent agenda. What would the board like to do?
Move for approval of the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Monty, retirement recognition.
Who's here to speak on behalf of Kathy? Okay. Adam.
All right. Kathy Warren.
Aye.
She started on December 26th, 2006, the day after Christmas. That's a testament to dedication right there. Everyone else is celebrating the holiday, and Kathy was here doing her thing. So the last 4 months have been interesting between Kathy and another retirement for Joan Tyson. This will be 52 years of experience that's lost for adult services and human services. So it's a big loss for the county. It's a big loss for the team. As much of it's our loss, it's their gain, which is amazing. But that's a lot of time, a lot of experience, and a lot of knowledge. So it's going to be missed, and it's going to be hard. We won't replicate something like that for a long time. So when you talk about 52 years, it's just a lot. What's the challenge for me is to try to say something about Kathy, because I've been only supervising Kathy for a little over a year, and to try to encapsulate all of the last 18 years of her employment here is impossible. So I try to think of what others would say. And I think the very first thing that people would say about Kathy is that they'd recognize her sense of humor. The way that she interacts with the staff, the time that she takes to get to know people. I think there's a lot of things that as a supervisor or as an employee for Benton County, you can talk about someone's work ethic, you can talk about someone's ability to manage programs and all of those things, but it's those kind of intangibles, those things that bring the team together, the things that help people celebrate, and find that time to spend time just interacting and being positive with each other. So Kathy, she's, her sense of humor is exuded in numerous staff celebrations, after work gatherings. Recently there was one of our new staff started, and Kathy realized she was working with her on her birthday, and her first response was, "I wish I would have been known I would have been working with you on your birthday. We could have gone out after work and had a little something." So, just acknowledging that that's important beyond just the normal daily work stuff that's going on, and then just celebrating special dates, recognizing those things. That sense of humor helps her create a personal connection with the people that she works with. It's not something that is disingenuous with Kathy. I started as a child protection worker here a few years back in 2016, and when I first met Kathy, I didn't have a lot of interactions with her, but it was the first thing she asked about my life, she asked about who I was, and that was always her interaction with anybody when they started, and that brings people onto the team. When you're talking about all of the changes that have happened over time. COVID hit, we had all of these less in-person meetings, more virtual meetings. All of those things were difficult to manage, and having Kathy on the team to go through that was huge because the way that she brought the team together and the way that she tied things together was always just so beneficial for our team. I think the other thing that people would talk about with Kathy would be her patience. Training new staff. Well, she's been a fan of the Twins for a long time, so it takes a lot of patience too. And then she also has to golf with Joan a lot, so that probably takes a lot of patience, I would guess. But those things, when you talk about the sense of humor, the patience, and then I think the last thing that people would say would be her leadership abilities. Kathy is not somebody that's going to be in your face with her leadership style. She's not somebody that's going to be telling you what to do. She's going to ask you questions, and she's going to get you to a point where you realize what you need to do. I've experienced that with Kathy as I've learned these programs. She's been a huge asset to me, someone that's helped me kind of like understand exactly how this stuff works. And she's always just been really positive and helped me through that stuff. We've seen her leadership as a union representative for a long period of time. And then just being somebody that all of the staff they can look up to and build some of their own skills based on the way that she interacts with others. So to sum everything up, I mean, there's, like I said, I could bring up 30 or 40 people from this agency that could all talk for Kathy for minutes on end. We could be here for the next 2 hours, but Kathy, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for the agency. Thank you for everything you have done for me. I've learned a lot, so appreciate everything you've done for us. You'll be missed, and we got a couple more weeks with you, so we're going to take advantage of every minute we can and get as much information before you walk out the door. But it's been amazing to have you in this agency, and it's been amazing to work with you, so thank you.
I'm not out up there, there's no door up there.
Maybe we gotta be taking you all later.
Thank you. Yeah.
You can stand wherever.
You just stand.
Yeah.
Right here? Sure, that works. Yeah. That's good.
Have them hold you up.
There we go, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you again.
Well, that's a lot of years.
That's a
leaving.
lot of years.
All right, Monty.
I relate for North End Liability. I believe, yes.
How do you replace all those years?
Don't. It's crazy.
Oof,
Yeah, in today's world, that won't happen.
no. Okay,
Okay. Well, thank you. My name's Brian Hunker. I work for Great River Energy. Here to present on the Northland Reliability Project. Last time I was here was roughly a year ago. And at that time, we were in, right before we were going to submit our application to the Public Utilities Commission. So I'll provide a recap of the project and then inform you of where we're at right now on the project. So this project is jointly proposed by Minnesota Power and Great River Energy. So you'll often see both of our logos here on the slides. So this is an overhead transmission line. It's a double circuit 345 kV transmission line, kilovolt transmission line that extends from the existing Iron Range substation to a new, it's actually a series compensation station that's going to be built near Cuyuna, down to the Benton County substation, and then a new substation that's being built by Xcel Energy called the Big Oak Sub. So this transmission line from end to end is roughly 180 miles long. I'll expand on that in a little bit. The Iron Range substation will be expanded. The Benton County substation will be expanded as a part of this project. And then a new series compensation station will be built near the Riverton, Cuyuna area. And then again, that Big Oak substation is going to be built by Excel. So this project was developed through the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO. They're our grid operator for, they actually have two regions, the upper region and then the southern region. We're here in the upper region. So they proposed a series of projects that extend
Excuse
from.
me? Do you
Yes.
think Monty, can we share a screen?
Oh,
We can, yeah.
Thanks, Amanda.
oh, somebody online, you're saying? I gotcha.
Yeah. Let's see how bad I can mess this up. Okay, here.
Well, we have Roxanne here. She can take care of it if you mess
Hey,
it up.
that's right. Is Roxanne sitting behind?
She is,
Let's see
yeah.
here.
She's smiling, waiting.
Roxanne, you might just get your chance. Let's see here. Let's see. I think this has gotta be. All right.
Would you like me to start over?
You're in bit. Hang on just a second.
Want Sophie's to start
All
over?
right.
No.
Almost there. Okay, you're good.
Great, thank you. So the project was approved in MISO's Tranche 1 projects. So there's roughly 19 projects that are proposed from North Dakota all the way over to Michigan. You can see ours highlighted here in blue. And it's part of the regional transmission plan for the area, as well as Minnesota. So the project mainly fulfills four needs, and that increases reliability of the grid, increases flexibility, strengthens grid reliance, especially during extreme weather events, and then enables an increase of capacity to carry different generation sources on the grid. So kind of think of it as like a superhighway within Minnesota that's connecting northern Minnesota to central Minnesota, as well as maintaining reliability across the interconnected grid from North Dakota down to Michigan, or over to Michigan. You can think of the project in two segments. Segment 1 is from Iron Range down to Benton County. That's roughly 120 miles long. So that's going to be primarily built next to adjacent or existing, or it's going to be built adjacent to existing transmission that's on the landscape. And then segment 2, which is Benton County down to Big Oaks and Sherco, that's actually two existing transmission lines that are roughly 120 miles long. Both of those will be replaced with this transmission line. So we started this process back in 2022, and I'll show you graphics of each one of these steps in our routing process, where we defined our study area. We narrowed that down to a route corridor, defined our preliminary route, and then narrowed the preliminary route into our proposed route, which we put into an application to the Public Utilities Commission back in August of 2023. So from that point in which we submitted that application, we're within the Public Utility Commission's permitting process. And that was roughly the last time I was able to present to you guys, and now we're here to step forward from that submittal of the application. So this is the graphics that shows our study area to the route corridor, to the preliminary route, and then the proposed route. Here in Benton County, you could see the proposed route shown in yellow, and that was the one that was put into the application. Within the state's permitting process, there are actually 3 route alternatives that are proposed, and those are shown in purple.
Monty, the slides are not advancing
Oh.
on there. Any thoughts?
I'm not sure that's the problem I can fix. That's a go-to issue.
Okay.
Right. It's a go-to issue, sorry about that. Sure, no problem. stop sharing and I'm gonna go back and share again. All right. That's about all I know that I can do.
Okay.
Start and stop it.
We might have to just send this to Amanda too, electronically.
Yeah, absolutely, we definitely can.
That's right, I got it, yeah.
So currently, there are 3 route alternatives that are proposed. And these route alternatives were either proposed by members of the public or by another state agency. You can see they're primarily to the west of our proposed route, and they're more towards the southern portion of Benton County. So within that state's regulatory process, also all of this information is available online through the dockets. And there's two dockets. They're actually, one is for the certificate of need, and the second one is for the route permit. So we submitted a joint application to the state, one for the certificate of need and one for the route permit. But all of this information is going to be posted in both of those dockets. So again, we submitted that joint application. In October of 2023, the Department of Commerce hosted scoping meetings in the area. So they collected feedback on the project. And then at that point in time, people identified route alternatives that they wanted analyzed within the environmental assessment. So again, the route alternatives are the, in Benton County at least, the areas shown here in purple. So that environmental assessment is going to be published at the end of June. Again, it should be posted on the dockets, and they'll have hard copies typically in libraries. The administrative law judge is going to hold public hearings within the project area in late July, roughly a month after the EA is published. And then the administrative law judge will provide a report to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. And then towards the end of this year, the Public Utilities Commission will issue a decision on our route permit. So we're still within the state's regulatory permitting process. And there still is an opportunity for folks to attend that public hearing with the ALJ, provide comments on the project. So we did start field surveys. So within segment 2, we conducted field surveys, so wetland delineations, archaeological surveys, noxious weed surveys within segment 2, so the 2 areas that are going to be rebuilt. We are starting field surveys in segment 1, basically this week. So those again are going to be wetland delineations, cultural resource surveys, biological surveys. So folks may see some members of our team out on the landscape. We do, of course, obtain right of entry on any property that we are either going to survey on or travel across that piece of property. We anticipate the surveys extending through the spring, summer, and fall of this year, and then continuing into 2023 as well. One kind of
2025?
or 2025, I'm sorry. Yeah, into spring of 2025. One kind of interesting analysis that we need to do is conduct studies for rare and endangered bats. And we do that through acoustic detectors. So oftentimes folks may see what kind of looks like a trail camera with a microphone attached to it. And that's all attached to a PVC pole out within the existing transmission line.
Are these a long-eared bats?
Northern long-eared bat, correct. Yep.
We're very familiar with them.
Oh, okay. Through other projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
County
Great.
road projects.
County road projects? Sure. Of course, what goes along with that is our land rights process. We do, of course, obtain right of entry before entering a property. We will look to begin the option and then transitioning options into easements as well. Construction, we anticipate starting here in segment 2 in 2025. So that'd be the wreck out of the existing facilities and then building the new facilities. Construction in segment one is anticipated to start in 2027. Below our timeline here, we have graphical representations of what the structures are gonna look like. So again, they're gonna be a monopole structure with arms on either side of it. One side of the arm has got 3 circuits attached to it, or 3 conductors, and that equals 1 circuit. The second side of the structure is gonna have another set of 3 wires, which will be the second circuit. Segment 1 shows where it's built next to existing transmission, and the graphic on the right there shows where the structures will be removed and the monopole structures installed then. So a couple upcoming milestones, and probably the most important for us here today is that EA is going to be released at the end of June. We'll have public hearings at the end of July. We are beginning engineering design on the line and the substations, as well as once we receive the state's route permit, we'll begin ancillary permitting with like Corps of Engineers, Department of Natural Resources. We discussed the field surveys that are going to be starting this week and next week. And then construction again will be starting in 2025, we anticipate. All of this information is available online. We do have the public-facing website, as well as an email address that folks can email any questions to, call our hotline. And then they can also log in to the state's docket and provide any kind of comments that they wish to the Department of Commerce on this project. I did hand out 2 sets of maps here. They basically show a more detailed view of the route alternatives that were proposed. So one map shows the full route within Benton County with the route alternatives on the southern end. And then the second map shows a more detailed view of those route alternatives. And you can see that they're labeled J1 through J3, and that's the state's labeling process on those. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
just one. Was there any specific things that came up from residents or landowners about these alternative routes? I mean, is that what kicked off the alternative routes, or was it from other agencies mostly? That's the right question.
Yeah, so it depends. So within Benton County, the route alternatives that were proposed were from state agencies.
Okay.
Yeah. In other portions of our line, we did get comments from the public on the route alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Pop?
I was basically on the same route as the route alternatives. I was wondering when you got an existing line, why would we need a route alternative?
Yeah, certain folks feel that there are better placements for the transmission line, or they feel that there might be a negative impact of placing the transmission line where we have proposed it, so they are able to propose other alternatives that may mitigate their concerns.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation, and Monty, you do got this electronically, we could send Amanda?
Send it to Amanda, you bet.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You didn't get the maps, right? I can send those to you as well. The PDF of the maps, okay, and then you could send those on. Okay, great. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good day.
Yep, have a good day.
Okay, next up, we are going to have a public hearing or the proposed changes to the Benton County Park Commission ordinance and to consider changes to the Park Commission bylaws. Monty?
I think we're back. Oh, I see Tim's with us online. Okay,
I take it you're the county staff we're gonna hear from.
you bet.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, the Park Commission discussed back at the September meeting, adding a representative from the Public Health Department. And I think the concept there was, public health, its mission is broadened over the years. And, one of the areas that they tend to focus on is what they call active living, to create opportunities, places for, our residents to be more active, more physically fit. I think also they can tap into potentially grants that they could bring to bear for our county parks and trails. So back in September, the Park Commission made the recommendation that you would amend the park ordinance to include a representative from the Public Health Department. So you'll see that in the ordinance 355, which created the Park Commission. The changes are underlined, and I'll highlight a few things. Again, adding a representative from the Public Health Department. The board previously discussed this, and as I recall, it was a consensus of the county board that the representative should be a county resident. So that's reflected in the changes and it says at the top of the second page, the Public Health Department shall be a resident of Benton County whose appointment shall be made by the county board upon the recommendation of the Public Health Director. So I thought you felt it was important that they'd be a county resident. In terms of office for that representative would be determined by the county board, and so on. And essentially the bylaws of the Park Commission the changes are essentially identical as what you see in the ordinance revisions. That is your staff report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to speak to these changes? I'll ask again, is there anybody online or in the audience that would like to speak to these changes? Final call? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there any testimony that needs to be read in?
Yes, sir.
Emails, letters, nothing?
Yes, sir.
Departments, nothing? Okay. Any official action would be coming later. County Board, what would you guys got any comments or questions on this?
I think it's good. I think we discussed it. It was brought to our attention over a year ago that there's money that they may be able to tap in that the Park Commission probably can't. So I think that's the biggest reason for this.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, and I agree. They have a lot of funding out there for trails and that.
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
Okay. What would the county board like to do? We got two items here.
Yes, the ordinance and then the bylaws. Yep.
Motion to adopt the amended ordinance 355 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance 355 as presented. Any other dialogue on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr.
Motion
Chair-
carries.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt the revised Park Commission bylaws as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to adopt the revised park laws, Park Commission bylaws as presented, and a second. Any other dialogue on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Monty. I think you're still up too.
Mr. Chair, I am back here for a fourth and final amendment to the SRF agreement. As we noted earlier, we got very favorable bids on the project at Bend the River. And that left us with $181,000 of our budget remaining. So at the last Park Commission, the Park Commission discussed a number of ideas to utilize these resources. And I listed a few of those in your agenda item. For example, putting down a product called Class 2 on the new trails. We're told by the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission that Class 2 is now required to increase the accessibility of your trails. We also, the Park Commission talked about putting Class 2 of an inch or a half or so on top of all the existing trails. Another idea was we need a new well. The existing well, Jeff tells me, gives you a incredible volume of 3 gallons per minute.
3 gallons.
So we're quite concerned if you had a large event at the new shelter, the well would run dry really fast. So a new well. Another idea that was discussed was possibly a small shelter on the south end. If you can picture the park, there's an area of the park which is kind of an island, and the boundaries are Ferry Point Road and County Road 55. And the park master plan envisioned a small day use area down there. So the Park Commission liked the idea of possibly putting a small shelter down there. Additionally, possibly additional signage and more benches. So what do we need SRF for? Well, if you can think of the trails as kind of like a road, you need them to develop the bid specs for, okay, what's the quantities? You know, what's the, how much and what needs to be done. So they're gonna do that for us. And also they're gonna do some preliminary design on what a shelter could look like. So that way then the vendor that our contractor is using can price it out. So it's, okay, we want to build a shelter of this dimensions and look like this. They can then price it out. So it's essentially limited to those two things. So what we're gonna do next then is we would take these estimates back to Park Commission and say, okay, folks, of this menu of things, what would you like to do? Within this 181,000, what would you like to do? We'll see what, you know, the Park Commission wants to prioritize and what works within this 181,000. We already heard that the Class 2 is gonna be pretty expensive. That's gonna chew up a bunch of the 181, if the Park Commission wants to do that first. I would definitely recommend that they do, and frankly, like I said, the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission says we really must do Class 2 on these new trails. So SRF tells us that the cost of this additional work is $3,200. That still keeps us within an overall original budget that was identified for this purpose, and that gets us across the finish line. We can use CIP fund balance to cover this cost. And some nice, good news from Wateb Township is they've got, I don't remember exactly the number, they've got some resources in their park dedication fund, and they wanted some of those used as part of this project. So they agreed to release $4,000 of their park dedication resources for these extra things and give us a total budget to work with, 185,000. That's where we stand.
Mr. Chair, so Wateb had no specific project that they
No.
wanted?
No, Julie didn't give me anything specific.
Okay.
What I told her we would do is once the park commission decided what it wanted to do, I could let her know, okay, Julie, these are the things your 4,000 is gonna help us cover. Yeah, specifically. But no, she didn't have anything specific.
And then I see Chris is in out. And I understand that Class 2 makes it more wheelchair accessible.
That's the issue, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Is that true,
compacts.
Chris? It backs better?
Right,
Yeah, it's smaller overhaul size rock, so yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, it
Okay.
packs tighter and, yeah, you don't have problems with wheels on it.
so I think one thing that made the cost go up is our contractor said he'd have to get it from the Martin Marietta pit in White Park.
Yeah.
And so you'd have that cost plus the hauling. Apparently, originally Class 5 that he was gonna obtain was a closer source and not as expensive. So that
Sure.
does drive the cost up, yeah. So. That's, any questions? So,
Mr. Chair, the question I have is either for Commissioner Pop or for Monty. So then do we have to widen the trails further then too? Do they have to be 6 or 8 feet?
No, I
or-
don't believe that we do.
No, there's no widening necessary,
Okay.
no. But I think we thought it's like, hey, you know, if we're gonna be putting Class 2 on the new ones, it'd be nice to have all the trails brought to the same level with Class 2. And there's quite a bit of existing trail
What,
out there.
and what
so-
about the maintenance then on that?
I don't
Much
know what
maintenance
there's
is
been
there
for
gonna be?
maintenance out there. I couldn't tell you on the
You
current
know,
trails.
the maintenance amounts to really a couple things. Smoothing out gopher mounds and weed spraying. That's generally what they do, yeah.
So Monty, is SRF, are they going to do the estimated cost for a well too? Or is
We've already done that.
you already done?
Well, I believe Jeff said that you had a suggestion that we would also, so we
Go
really
out
should
for
get
bid.
2 quotes.
Yeah.
We have one already from Trout. I think it's about 20,000.
Right.
but I think you'd given him another possible source. So in any project, we should try and get two quotes, right? Yeah. So,
How much was the well again?
well, the one quote that Jeff got from Trout is
20 grand.
20,000. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you give him GM or?
Yeah, either
So-
GM or Jennings,
So
I know they will pretty much blow that quote out of the water.
Yeah. It'd be nice to be able to do as many projects as possible and not have to spend so much on a well.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Chair, Monty, so could we use some of our ARPA funds for that well? If need
My
be?
initial reaction is I don't see how we could.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let's check into it.
Yeah. Kind of glad when the ARPA money's gone.
Yeah.
Sure, we can figure out 20,000 somewhere through the ARPA money.
Well, I mean, they got a fair amount of money, and I think,
Right.
you know, I think, you know, we're doing projects way more than what we anticipated. So I don't really see a problem with it. I just they were set on Trout at the beginning, and you know,
I think Trout did the first well.
yeah,
out
that
there.
what you said, and
I guess we heard through Jeff that when they did the first well, they hit granite.
right, it sits on top of granite.
Sure.
You know, and maybe at that time, 3 gallons a minute was enough. I don't know.
Sure.
You know, somebody said that
Yeah,
night that you
we-
flushed the toilet and it's out of water.
We're just really worried. You have
Yeah.
a big family reunion out there.
Yeah.
It's going to be trouble.
And,
yeah.
and a well sitting on top of granite takes a lot longer to recharge.
It does, yeah.
And as we make
Got the
all these
static
changes
pressure,
out
yeah.
there to bring more people and to promote the region,
Right. That would be a disaster.
not have
if our
water,
well
we
went
need to
dry.
figure that
Yeah,
out.
and you know, the other part that you don't realize that I never realized is that when BEP's looking at somebody coming in, well, that's one of the things they look at is what's your county got for parks?
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought it was kind of irrelevant, you know.
Yep.
15 years ago, I'd have says, let's just doze out those trees and get that to agriculture.
Speaking from a true, no. Would you irrigate it too?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Need a well.
Yeah.
All right, what would the board like to do?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with SRF to move forward with the additional planning.
Second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to move this forward. Any other communication on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Sandy, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So 2 things today. The first thing was to consider the 2023-2024 Benton County and Avivo SNAP contract. That's for employment services with Avivo. It's a repeating contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the Avivo SNAP contract. Any questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then the second thing that I'm bringing today is at the last board meeting, you asked for some details about our guardianship and how that's changed. So Deb Reland and Adam Martins are here to give you a little short presentation on that.
Perfect.
All right, thank you for your time. So we're gonna break this down a little bit, piece by piece here, go backwards and then give some history and then kind of help the board understand exactly why we've been coming with recent, contract requests. So I think in the last year, since, we've been looking at building our contract pool for guardianships, this has been our 3rd contract that we brought to the board. This specific contract for this guardianship provider was more specialized to basically meet the need of one certain client. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. But to just start it off, we go back a little bit. I think it was a year and a half ago, there was a presentation to the board at the COW, and it was from the Minnesota State Demographics Office and the Central Minnesota Council on Aging, where they presented kind of the change that's coming down the pike with the aging population. More and more people are retiring, less people are coming into the job pool, and as more people retire and get older and need services, that causes a need on this end from human services to help those individuals and provide services to all those folks. To give you kind of an idea of Where some of this is coming from, some of this contracting is in response to some guardianship changes. Some of it is also kind of planning for the future, so to speak. When you look at the service needs in Benton County, currently we have roughly 400 nursing home beds in Benton County. We have about 600 plus assisted living and foster care beds, and then we also have 65 plus board and lodge beds. So people being in those facilities and being served, that creates kind of that need sometimes for more guardianship services. Benton County is also located closely to the St. Cloud area, so you have the St. Cloud Hospital, the Centricare Health System, Veteran Services Hospital. So you have a lot of people that are seeking services in those areas. And if they don't want to move into the metro area, then that causes a move kind of into this area to ensure that they have some of those services where they're maybe not getting some of those services in the outstate areas. So we have some of that historical change going on, but then we also have the other historical change part is that some of the other factors that have increased some of this funding. This has been a while ago, but we're seeing the ripple effect of this to continue. We had the downsizing and closure of state hospital facilities. Those facilities that were serving people with developmental disabilities, mental illness, and mental health issues, that has resulted in more community-based settings. As a result of that, where you could have a lot of people housed in one area and meet those needs. Some of those guardianship needs weren't as heavy. When you have people moving into the community, moving into customized living, foster care settings, things like that, you have to have those guardianship services available to those individuals. The other aspect is that now we're seeing as everybody ages, people that have guardianship, typically if it's not a private guardian that we're contracting with, or if it's not a state guardianship, which we do a few of those, it's family members. As those family members age or pass, and typically it's going to be a parent for an adult or a sibling. Those are kind of the main ones that we have. There's aunts and uncles and things like that. But as those adults age and as their children age or as they pass, and if there's not another suitable family member that wants to take on that responsibility, then we have to look at private guardianship, which is, through a contracted provider and pay for those costs. And then we also have the other piece that we have too is, I know we've talked about this over time. You're very familiar with kind of the ripple effect of DHS. DHS drops a rock into the pond, that ripples out, that impacts the counties, that impacts the funds that the counties have to pay, all of those things. We've seen it in several different areas. But one of those areas is, as we've had this increase for the min choice assessments, and as the state has said, everybody who qualifies or everybody wants these assessments, they can get them. That then increases our number of disabled individuals. Previously, without those assessments there, the disabled individuals are found in different ways, and they were kind of cared for more by their families and things like that. As that has spread and as that's opened up and that door is opened, now we have more people certified with disabilities, and as a result, typically there's a higher guardianship need as well. That also obviously has an impact on adult services and all of those other programs. I mean, other things that you're seeing is a huge increase in mental health disorders, a huge increase in alcohol and drug usage, and then those types of things require guardianship services as well. So, and typically when you're looking at the mental health disorders and the drugs and alcohol situations, you struggle to find a viable family member that can be a guardian for those individuals. So you don't have another option. And there are times where we've had a family member take on guardianship and it's just not working because now the family member has some of those same issues as well. And so you have to kind of weed through all of that stuff. So that kind of talks about the history a bit about it. So why are we asking for these additional contracts? As this has changed, over the last couple of years, we didn't have any contracts with anybody. We saw this influx of guardianship need, but we were kind of behind the fact that we didn't have these contracts set up. So we were kind of playing catch up, so to speak. We were working with a couple of providers. Outside of having a contract, we were experiencing high rates for these guardianship services. We didn't have a set rate that these guardianship providers would provide. With the contracts, it gives us a set rate. So for ongoing guardianship services, we're looking anywhere from $200 to $230 per individual per month for those guardianship services. Prior to that, some of our rates, we would get bills sometimes $1,500, $3,500 for 3-4 months of service. Now, was that guardianship provider not providing good service? No, they were doing a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work, but we didn't have a specific contract, so there was no way to kind of mitigate those costs. With the contracts, we're able to say, this is how much we're going to pay you. They agree to it, the contract is signed, and then moving forward, those costs are much easier to manage. So that's where that was part of our goal, is to be fiscally responsible with the county dollars and make sure that those funds were used appropriately. So establishing contracts, it helps us do that. It also, the recent contract that we requested from the metro area with that individual, it's an individual who's been in a hospital setting for 2 years. I think you've all heard presentations on this client. That client is planning to move into a community setting in northern metro area in the next month or so. And so we wanted to get a guardianship provider that was in that area. We also, our current contracted guardians, none of them were willing to take it on because it was such a complex case. The end of the guardianship group that said that they would take it on, we had I shouldn't say we don't have a choice, but we needed to contract with them to get a guardian set in place. Because of the complexities of this individual, we initially pursued a public guardianship so that the county would have guardianship of this individual, because the client just turned 18 so as an adult in December. There's some conflict of interest that stuff happens there, and so we wanted to kind of separate ourselves from that and help liabilities with the counties and things. So that also helped us as well. So as of right now, that contracted provider is just providing guardianship services for that one client. And then that's the same fee that we've established with our other contracts. And then we mirrored our contracts based on Stearns County contracts and then closely to, I believe, Sherburne County as well, but we're right in line with all of those payments for contracted services. The other part is there's guardianship costs that are related to the ongoing services, but there's also guardianship costs that are related to the court services as well. So there are times when we need to pursue guardianship. We have a responsibility to pay those costs. I don't know how it was determined, but several years ago it was determined that Human Services would pay for those costs because it was within the realm of the Human Services area. One of the biggest things to help the board understand is that even though we have all of these nursing home beds and assisted livings and board and lodges, we do not assume the financial liabilities for all of those individuals for ongoing guardianship costs. That's another way that we always try to be very fiscally responsible, is we work closely with neighboring counties that if they have somebody that's county of financial responsibility, for example, from Stearns County, living in Benton County, we might have the initial costs if guardianship needs to set up, but we work closely with them that they're gonna pay the ongoing costs. Because we should not be responsible for those costs, considering that they're financially responsible. We also have people outside of Benton County that we have financial responsibility to. That all ties into their financial program. So that's all determined at a level that DHS says that this person will be your financial responsibility and this person won't, depending on the place that they live in. So all of those different factors come into play as well. So currently, where we're at right now is we have 4 providers that we're contracted with. All of those rates are about the $200 to $235 of our ongoing guardianship filing fees. The primary funding of guardianship costs are county levy dollars. There is not a specific budget or grant area that we can take out of for those. We have found ways, any way that we can, any grants that we can access, any way that we can, we try to take money out of there as well. So an example of that is, and I think Deb can speak to this a little bit more. She'll be talking about some of the adult protection grants and some of the funding that's there, so some of that money gets pulled in. We also have Minnesota supplemental aid. So anybody, we work closely with the financial department to ensure that anybody's eligible for Minnesota supplemental aid. What happens then is if they have guardianship costs and they're eligible for that, a percentage of their money coming in, typically it's social security funds, or some sort of disability funds. And you can use up to $100 of that, or 10% roughly, of their fees, which is usually close to $100, to pay for those guardianship funds. So what happens with those cases is if we deem that Minnesota supplemental aid will cover that, then the $100 goes directly to the provider, and then we get billed the additional 120 or whatever it is. So we, as much as we can, we're seeking those funds out to ensure that we're protecting those levy dollars as well. So we're trying to do everything in our capability, work closely with the financial department early on to determine all of those things. We currently have, prior to having public guardianships or private guardianships, all of our public guardians were managed by Human Services. That number has reduced. We currently have 7 public guardianships that we manage. So the supervisor of the Home and Community-Based Services, HCBS program, works as the representative guardian, with the state having guardianship for those individuals. So it's signing all the documentations that are needing, attending yearly meetings, anything else like that, making decision-making for those individuals under the umbrella of Minnesota DHS. We have another provider, Presbyterian Family Foundation, PFF, that has 3 of ours. That was a new contract that we came and requested a few months back. Resource Training Solution, we've been contracting for a while. They have 11. PGS is another provider that has 6 of ours. And then we also have one provider who has 12 who are strictly funded by the Minnesota Supplemental Aid. So that provider, there's no cost for additional fees for levy dollars or anything like that. And that's an individual provider. So that individual is not associated with a larger agency. With the larger agencies, you have leadership, you have all of the different aspects of it. So if something were to happen to that one individual, we'd have to figure out what to do with those 12 guardianship files. So it's nice that we don't have to pay the same amount, but we also get some benefits of having an agency to work with in case something falls through. So really good guardian, just a different kind of dynamic of where we're at. And that individual guardianship provider is pretty much tapped out as far as being able to take on any more cases. So that was the other thing, prior to seeking additional contracts, it was always our go-to for that provider to utilize that one individual. And now, since we've kind of capped that out, we need these other providers as well. The other part is we have some of these funding pieces I think Deb's going to speak to here. And then we'll just kind of review some additional standards that have come up recently.
Thank you for that.
Confusing us even more.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
confusing us even.
So basically, the services that, under guardianship that Adam and our units work together on, were funded through the Vulnerable Child and Adults Act, which is the General Service Fund. And then we also have access to an adult protection grant, or adult protection grant funding, which started in about 2020. With the establishment of that grant and the changes with DHS, we're now adult protection is now held to performance standards in measures such as child protection. In 2024, we received approximately $23,000. Those are 100% state funds. So we try to utilize the money set through the budgeting process from the Vulnerable Child and Adult allocations, the Adult Protection Grant. We try to use those dollars to provide or pay for those services across, for the guardianship or adult protection services. There still are county funds that must be applied. As you know, these costs have been continuing to rise over the course of the years. A couple of things that I wanted to point out that has changed as far as some of the standards, and Adam can pipe in on this, is that we're anticipating also that with guardianship conservatorships, if some of the proposed statutory changes that were being talked about earlier this year go through, that we're going to see the guardianship agencies that we're contracting with now kind of drop off the face of the earth. What they're really concerned about is that legislatively there was some movement to say that guardians could not be, they could not request discharge. So if you were appointed a guardianship, you were that person's guardian forever. And, they weren't gonna let you ask to be relieved of that duty. The other thing was that these guardianship agencies, or the people working for them, would be held personally liable and could be personally sued. So I know that legislatively, many of these guardianship agencies in the last few months have been down at the Capitol talking to the legislators regarding the concerns. This would be devastating. What would happen here if that were to occur would be that public guardianship, where the county would be appointed, those would all be rolling back to the counties across the state. When I started in '87, back, and this was well before, the downsizing of the state hospitals and all of that, Benton County had in excess of 60 people at that point that we were guardian for. And most of those people were living in settings such as the state hospital. Through the work of the case managers in Adam's unit, or my former unit, people died. People were restored to capacity. We looked and sought out family members. Thus, we were able to bring those public guardianship numbers down to 7. We look for family. We try really hard to, have people who know those individuals represent those individuals. So I think most of the guardianships, unless it's coming from a case manager's recommendation because they know the family has died, they're having to come through adult protection. And our agency goes through a process where we look and scrutinize those guardianship needs and look for anything that's least restrictive. I mean, that is ultimately health and safety in a last resort for us. The other thing that's happened since November of last year is that Benton County, there's been some changes within the 7th Judicial District. And so I think Benton and Mille Lacs were the last couple of counties to be embraced in the changes of the judicial system. But what that meant for us was that court-ordered guardianship investigations started rolling the county's direction. And prior to our agency kind of interceding, we had our courts actually taking and appointing one of those individual guardian types of organizations that were on the spendier end, but they had been individuals or an organization that had worked closely with the courts and were well known to the courts, provided a good service. With that being said, since I believe about November, and this impacts both child unit and the adult services unit. The children's unit has had 2 of these court-ordered guardianship investigations, and then adult services has had 7 to date. Basically what happens is we have family members or individuals who are struggling either to complete the complex processes laid out in the courts. They can't navigate the system as far as just the computers, or maybe they've got an elderly family member who's died or incapacitated. For whatever reason, we get a court order, we go, we meet the client, we look at the situation and we make recommendations to the court to either discharge the guardianship, or we find another family member, or in some instances, we have to find one of these agencies that we work with in order to take on or to continue the ongoing needs because of the protective status of the individual. So a lot has been changing. It's a moving target, but we just want to assure you that, again, we try to do all that we possibly can to avert the use of our public funds, and still provide a safety net for the residents of our county.
Mr. Chair, Deb, I don't know if this question's for you or not, but if not, we'll find, do you have a general idea of the total impact on levy dollars for this?
Oh, let's see. I think specifically, we could probably go, as far as levy dollars, I think roughly my vulnerable child and adult, or the VCA dollars coming in to the agency, I think is roughly about 82 or 85,000. Then we have roughly the 24 to 25,000 average that we get grant. Some of those, I think I'd have to come back specifically to you to say what we're spending in addition, because in addition to just the grant dollars, because we have staffing included. So I think that right now for roughly the 27 clients over the course, I want to say it's somewhere between that $12,000 and $15,000 additional, or just what we know that's going out in SSIS. I would have to break that down for you for each of those years.
That's fine, I'm just looking for a general.
number, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we're seeing more people, we're seeing an increase, and we're seeing people, come and go, but generally once you have established a guardianship, unless there's something significant, death or a family member steps up, we have those individuals for a considerable amount of time,
Thank you.
and provide those services, so.
Maybe this was answered before, but I can't, what consummates, Benton County, how long do they gotta live here versus Stearns County?
Or like, if I have a relative that needs to come closer to us,
If
and he
you're
moves
a
from another
resident,
county.
if you're a resident of Benton County and need guardianship, the responsibility or those court proceedings, if you live here, they take place in our county.
How about if you leave our county, you're a resident of our county and you go to a family member?
You're still our responsibility. If we've established guardianship for you and your financial responsibility remains with us, then we would follow your family member. If I think in some situations, and we haven't done it because we haven't had it occur, but in a situation, if that were to happen and we could ask for like a change of venue, and that would be Bill Farber from the County Attorney's Office, who we've had some conversations about what would we do in this type of situation. He would be willing to assist us with that change of venue. So then if that person, maybe they were private pay or whatever, but they're living with a family member in Yellow Medicine County or something like that, and the need for review comes up, they're not gonna haul that person back here to see them once a year. Then we could look at the change of venue process and that guardianship proceeding going to the county where that person was living.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Pop's question, or more of a clarification, just so I got this right. So let's just say you got an individual that lives in Benton County that moves to Stearns County because he wants to be, or this individual wants to be closer to a potential guardian, right? Then it would still be under our liability because they're moving close over there because they initiated.
Most,
Then on the other side, if they move from Stearns County to Benton County, you guys would track that back to Stearns County.
most often what we see is the individuals that we have guardianship for. We also have in wavered homes or assisted livings where that they're in time excluded facilities. So no matter where they live, we retain the financial responsibility for them. So you don't see that back and forth an awful lot because of the other types of support services that we have had to put in place. So they generally are staying with, you know, the county of financial responsibility, because they're generally needing more help and support and are living in those protected settings. So if we had somebody here that went into a nursing home in Stearns County, we would be responsible for that person till the day they die, basically, living in that facility in Stearns County.
Mr. Chairman, but vice versa, it'd be the same thing, you know, Stearns
Absolutely.
counties, if they
Yeah.
came to our county, the other
Absolutely.
county's responsible.
Absolutely.
My other question, and I don't really want to do this, but if we could, if it's easy to do, could we have like a quarterly tracking how many levy dollars
Sure.
have
Yeah,
went
we
out
we
for
will be
this
able to figure
guardianship?
that out and give you.
I mean, but we can't expect staff to spend all this time providing us with information because they got other things to do. But if it would be relatively easy, I would appreciate that.
I think it would be easy enough to do, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cause your talents would be suited somewhere else besides.
Yeah. More data.
Ashley.
Quite honestly, what we found when we were looking at the dollar amounts, we'll get you more specific numbers. But what we found out is because it was originally a very small amount of money that was spent, the accounting department was kind of lumping all of the guardianship costs together as one, like the court costs, and it wasn't being tracked as well as we would like to separate it out, and with those grants in there. So we will get you more solid numbers, but it was actually you opening eyes to an area that we didn't know was maybe an issue. I mean, it's tracked. We know how much you spend, but not,
But it can fluctuate.
yes.
Yeah.
It fluctuates a lot. There's a lot of different costs mixed in with the guardianship costs in there. Court costs versus individual fees that are spent every month. So, but we have definitely in the last couple of years brought our costs down per individual, though our individuals are rising.
I think to Commissioner Pop's point is that trend, you know, if we can see what's,
Yes. So we will get you more specific numbers for that.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Maybe a little mind boggling.
It's not as easy as just paying a few bucks here and there. All right, we're gonna move on to Chris. Now that Chris is done, we'll move on.
Very good. I like it. Good morning, Commissioners. Just allow me a moment here to bring up some talking materials. So, on your agenda and in your packet today was a discussion about the Excel relocation agreement. We've talked about this in the past. I've been having discussions with Excel on this. Just to provide some background and maybe refresh everybody's memory, what you see on the screen now is our layout for the roundabout at CSA 29, which is running east and west, and our Mayhew Lake Road, also County State Highway 1, running north and south. Right here is a large Xcel Energy transmission pole that is at this corner, makes a 90-degree turn. They also have a pole over here with guy wires that span the roadway. These poles would be in conflict. So our first discussions with Xcel way back in February was, could Xcel Energy consider relocating or removing this pole and just simply span at a diagonal? They looked at it and said, yeah, that could probably work. But these are wooden poles. Due to the angle and the forces and the tension on the lines, these wooden poles would need to be replaced with steel poles on concrete foundations. So to eliminate one pole, they seen it as replacing two poles. They provided what was called a scoping estimate that I believe you've seen before. And that estimate right now is sitting at $935,000. Why that matters is because Benton County is on the hook for those costs for relocation. Well, why are we on the hook for that? Well, they have utility easements that predate our road easements in this area. So usually when a public utility is in public road right away by permit, when they become in conflict of the construction and maintenance of our roadways, it's their cost to relocate them. The fact that they have easements that were outside of our highway easement, even though we have additional highway easement on top of that, it puts the cost back on us because they existed in their own easement first. So to relocate within their own easement or even outside of their easement, those costs fall to us. Yeah, so we've been talking for the last couple months and not getting any leeway on that estimate. The scoping estimate walks, talks, sounds like an agreement because it requires signatures on us. In Excel's position is they would like the county to sign this scoping estimate and put down a deposit that equals their estimate of engineering, about $140,000. Then they will kick off their engineering process and come back to us with a more detailed and more accurate estimate and a relocation agreement at that time. And then that would require signatures on both sides to actually initiate their process of ordering materials, lining up construction to have those new poles constructed. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it, I guess. I'm looking for guidance, I guess, at the board on how to proceed. A lot of times I look at having two budgets, a monetary budget and a time budget. So their timeline is saying that they need 15 months from a scoping estimate, lead time for engineering, ordering materials, and then actually relocating those lines. So 15 months from the date the scoping estimate is signed to when they can comfortably say that they'll be clear. We're hoping to construct this roundabout next year. So,
Chris, I got a quick question.
sure, go ahead.
140,000 of engineering. And Commissioner Pop, I believe, is the one who brought this up yesterday on a different engineering request was 1.5 million. You divide that by 10 people, right?
Yeah.
This is basically paying one person a year to do engineering on two poles. I'm failing to understand.
I completely agree with you. I thought that was quite high. To put it in context, we hired Stonebrook Engineering to be our engineering consultant to design this roundabout. We're looking at $3 million, and we're a little bit more than that. I think we're what, $160,000, $175,000 for them to have a whole staff of designing a roundabout. I mean, when you think about comparative, the engineering cost to the construction costs, we have a lot more construction cost overall. Another way of saying that is our engineering costs are a smaller percentage than what theirs
Yeah.
are. So that was brought up in my most recent meeting with them. I brought that up to them and previously. Even asked them to explore the ideas of going out for an RFP to get different engineering firms. Well, that would take more time, in their opinion, and they didn't think that it would cost anything different because each consulting firm would have the same information, is what their response was to me. In this relocation agreement, they do list the engineering firm that they plan on using. It's listed in here as HDR Engineering somewhere. I'm sure that
Can we contact them directly?
HDR is a large firm. I don't know if they had a name of Timothy Rogers. That's who from Excel, but prepared by Russell Schiller of HDR Engineering. So I don't have his contact information, but yeah.
Mr. Chair, Chris, there's a line item they have in there for 40,000 for easements. For what?
Okay, so yes, so this line is not in a utility easement. They said that they would need $40,000 to acquire additional easements. We pushed back on that, and then they said, no, you're right, county, we would actually like you to acquire those easements. And then we pushed back and said, well, why would we acquire easements for you to be in there? We'll allow you to be in our road right-of-way easement. And so that's still not settled. They said, well, we can't acquire those easements because we wouldn't have condemning authority. A quick consultation with our county attorney's office doesn't know where that's coming from, why they wouldn't have condemning authority. Obviously, they acquired easements before we acquired road easements in the past. That's why we're in this whole situation. They've acquired. I don't know if it's an issue of if this landowners are unwilling to sell them an easement, they don't think that they could take it to a condemnation court. Whereas, we do that, have to do that sometimes before roads. For road construction, part of that is establishing the public purpose and public need for that project, and therefore the public need for the additional easement or road right-of-way. So that's what they were estimating the cost for securing a utility easement to span that diagonal like that. So.
And they're also looking at an estimated time schedule to engineer to 15 weeks.
Well, what they clarified was that's from now to relocation, 15 weeks. So
totally done, right?
So when I asked a question about engineering, that's a lot for designing two poles that are going to be, that I think are going to be very similar design, probably other poles you have in the region. And then they said, well, we will have engineering oversight during construction for inspection and stuff too. So the engineering, their response will be during the whole project. So the $134,000 wasn't just for design, it's for design and construction oversight.
It's just like we're reinventing the wheel to move two poles.
I would imagine their office that they're using is out of St. Louis Park. It looks like they got one on Rochester, St. Louis Park, but they got 12,000 employees, so.
It is.
That's it, though.
And we're dealing with Excel Transmission, which in my experience, they operate a little bit different than the Excel Gas Division. And they operate differently than the Excel Distribution, which is what provides the power to our homes. They're like three different companies in one sometimes. So, signing this, to initiate their process, they are expecting this deposit. I said 140. I apologize. It's $134,000 to get them moving. But at least the understanding verbally between them and I is that there will be another agreement forthcoming to actually lock both parties into greater costs or more costs in actually ordering materials and so on and so forth. So.
I gotta tell you, even after a discussion yesterday, I've been chewing on this. I mean, to get backed into a corner, we're all supportive of this project. We're gonna get thrown $100,000 or $1 million at us. What if it was 2 million? I mean, would we be?
Well, I think we'll find that out after the 134.
I also reached out to send an email out to all 87 county engineers. That's not true. They're not all. Not every county has a county engineer right now. To ask who has experience with Excel Energy. How often do they come in within their estimate? Because to ease my concern, Excel keeps repeating to me, "Oh, we're only going to charge you for actual costs."
Right.
That's great and fine,
Yeah,
but how
if it's
often do you
lower.
come in under your actual costs? And it was across the board. Reviewing it again this morning, most responses said they were pretty close to their estimate. There was one outlier, and that was in Scott County, and they said that all said and done, their relocation project actually ended up costing twice what their scoping estimate is.
To your point.
Scott County does have a lot of more urban and suburban environments. I don't know if that's what kind of led to that, why that was more. But even some responses that didn't deal with Excel Energy, but with other large utility companies in Minnesota said that generally they come in close or slightly above their estimate. A few did say no, they were. Our most recent relocation project was under the estimate. So.
What frustrates me over this, this is complete, if you ask me, Excel is probably part owner of HDR. And then they can pay whatever the heck they want because they pass all this along.
Yeah.
And the taxpayers that need this public utility pay for it. It's just, as we call it in everywhere, money laundering.
Well, they can charge it because they can.
Yeah, all they're doing is pushing money around.
They can. There's no.
It's a joke.
Nobody watches.
Well, and obviously, we all understand there's a cost to relocate this.
Yes.
Right.
Obviously, but come on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so let's talk about the monkey wrench we talked about yesterday with the other route. Now, this is an access basically for the residents that are right in that area. If we,
No,
Keep that
no, this is the extension of 29 too.
I know, so, no, I'm talking about that little area that's already there right now is serving those people. Right,
Yes.
the one up there serves the other property owner. But it still comes out at the same spot you would be proceeding to, so if you just curved it a little bit to go back over there and left them with their access and Excel with all their energy stuff that they need for that, what's our problem up going the other direction with Excel?
The problem is we have to redo the road 29 coming to the roundabout from Molitor's.
So we'd have to put a roundabout up higher?
No, we would have to realign that in order to move that roundabout to where we can put the pole in the center or even move it north of that.
Yeah, I understand what Commissioner Schlong, yeah.
I'm trying to say the route of 29, just curve it a little bit there. And avoid all the complicated Excel stuff and let them deal with their stuff.
Chris, put your arrow where she's talking about and what we would have to do with the 29, curving it. So where that water, the blue line is,
There's a
or that
holding
blue
pond.
water, that holding pond, it would have to be further north of that yet
So,
to miss the poles.
yeah, I think I understand where everybody's going. So we got this pole here. We do have, this has actually kind of changed shape now as we've gotten farther in design. So yeah, in this corner though, basically, is our stormwater treatment pond because we have quite a bit more new impervious area. So we have to collect all of our not all of it, but we have to collect some of our stormwater and send it into an infiltration pond to treat that. So, one location, we thought, well, what if we move this circle enough that this pole is inside this circle? Well, road design is kind of like a chain. It's hard to move one link of the chain without affecting the whole length of it. So you're moving this roadway. Then we start becoming in conflict with this pole right here that would be the diagonal. So then we got to move the road to a point, which is probably this whole width, moving this road far enough up that this is now not in conflict with the westbound or eastbound lane. So this whole width of the roadway here is almost 40 feet. So we're moving the center of the roadway at least 40 feet up here. Then that means that we're pushing this roadway all the way back to here. Well, we don't want to impact another pole right here. That's what this little circle with this line is, another transmission line. So how do we do that? How do we design a curve in here to make sure that we still have our clear zone distance from the edge of the roadway to both of these poles and move that up here? It ends up moving, but then we can't move it too much because then we don't want this pole to be on the other side of the circle and start being in the other side, the other lanes. It's really difficult to fit this in here, and we have some undesirable curves then to make this work. Our roadway costs then start approaching another $1 million just for regrading, additional right-of-way acquisition. Then we're extending this city street up to meet where the new 29 alignment is. Our environmental documentation is based on essentially staying with the current alignment. That adds a little bit more engineering cost, but that really adds to the timeline for the project to push and pushes that out. We could do that. We could look at designing this and doing this. I really think if we go to that route, we would not be constructing this next summer though, because we'll need time to redefine our alignment, redefine our grading limits, redraw up our parcel maps for additional right-of-way acquisition that we need. revise our environmental, so we got, because we're in such a tight timeline with this federal funding grant that we got and get it ready to construct next year, we've got multiple things happening at the same time. Same time we're talking to Excel, we're still finishing up our design, we're also submitting our environmental documentation for review. Our environmental documentation is based on essentially this layout with some minor tweaks. Like I said, the pond is kind of changed and everything. So if we change that, we got to pull that environmental documentation review back and resubmit that, and then basically that clock starts over with all the reviews down in St. Paul.
Chris, would it be,
Chris, will it affect our federal funding?
yes.
Yeah, because so the federal funding becomes available state fiscal year of 25, which starts July 1st of 2024. To be able to still use it, we have to have project authorization before June 30th of 2025, meaning all the plans are approved and we've got approval to go ahead and go to letting. Our goal, though, is that we construct this roundabout outside of school hours. So we're hoping June 1st next year, we're moving dirt, or as soon as school gets out of Sauk Rapids Rice High School. To do that, ideally, we're having a bid opening end of March, so we're getting contracts approved in April. We're having our pre-construction meeting in May, so June 1st, we're starting to move dirt. That means, okay, bid opening in May, we're advertising into February. End of December, we have final plans approval from state aid and federal highways in St. Paul in December. We really are submitting those things right now to give them, that's how much time it's taking to get things reviewed. And even that's quickly, so.
Oh, Mr.
And
Chair.
then we also stand to lose $440,000 from APO. Chris, would it be oblivious to say that moving that roundabout will throw an extra $1.5 million into the equation versus the $900,000 of moving the poles?
I don't know exact costs. I just think that we're gonna get to a point where it's a wash. We'll end up spending at least that much, probably in additional engineering and additional grading.
And right-of-way.
And right-of-way costs and
But the
stuff.
potential bigger problem is screwing up our federal funding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Well,
timeline.
we need to
I
ask
think
for more
that's the
funding.
Consideration.
What?
Excuse me?
We'll have to ask for more funding because it's more expensive.
Do you know how hard we worked to get this funding?
Well, they're gonna need to fund it because it's infrastructure.
Where
Who's
is this
gonna fund
coming
it?
from? Yeah.
Who's gonna fund it?
Who's gonna,
Federal's
Who's gonna fund it?
The federal will have to do it if the state's not gonna do
They
it.
said no. That's
This-
why we got this
We
ASIP
shouldn't, it
grant.
shouldn't be for the county to fund Excel. Somebody's gotta get that funding from
It's
somewhere
our
else.
project, that's why we gotta fund Excel.
Chris, I was thinking about this last night after we were there. So if you drive through Wisconsin, a lot of times their roundabouts are way bigger than what ours are.
They're huge.
What if we just made the whole circle in the middle bigger and put that pole inside? I mean, some of them are like huge in Wisconsin.
Either way, we're adding.
We're
tons
adding
of
costs.
And now we have to decide what can we live with and what can't we live with? Minus
You
getting
know,
the project done and not losing funding.
going back to Commissioner Schlangen's question, Excel is just fine without us doing this project.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. With that said, what bothers the heck out of me right now is I designed cell towers, 400 footers, and I can build two 400 footers with design, all the NEPA clearances on tribal land for 500,000 apiece. These aren't 400 foot aerials going up. I mean, this is in my opinion,
It's extortion.
it is. That's a perfect. I mean, 140,000 for engineering on this is. I would love to figure out every way we could stick it to Excel moving forward after
And
this.
you've got almost 600 in construction.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this?
I
this
think,
is
I
what
was
they do.
told they can. That's why they're doing it, because they can.
No
Well,
different than
we
the-
got to figure out ways that we can make it painful for them moving forward for many, many, many years.
It doesn't start out a very good partnership.
No.
I'd say leave their poles.
I would like to see where all this cost is coming in. I do know that we gotta move forward on this. I myself would be willing to make the motion to approve the 134. But if this comes in at $2 million,
No way, we're done.
we need to relook at things.
I agree.
So for that, I'll make the motion to approve the 134. However, I would like to see added to that is a detailed list of hours on what they're charging for and what they did for that. Because I did the math at $250 an hour. That's 14 weeks for one person to design 2 poles.
Who does, and that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Not asking
For
me
a
to do
living.
Oh, that's their job.
So I see a lot of profit in there, and I, let's have a detailed, so in my motion, I would like to see a detailed hourly list of what they're providing for this.
Yeah, not a blanket invoice.
Not a
for
blanket
134
invoice, yep.
grand.
I think that's, a good
Mr.
question.
Chair, I will second that. Now let's
Oh,
do
yeah,
more
we should have a second
discussion.
So I understand. We'll move forward with getting this first step, but before we commit or agree to anything else, we need to see some more documentation from Excel, and that'll be brought back to the board for review and consideration.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, that roundabout's not just for the residents in Creekside. It's for the school. It's for everybody that travels that direction.
Which is one of our busiest roads.
And it's gotta be the
bad
one of
county
the
roads.
busiest intersections we got in the county.
It is.
If we back up even further, remember that study, this was identified as a safety,
Yep.
high priority intersection. There's a lot of crashes. And so that's our whole goal with this project, is to improve safety. And that's what, it pains me to have to pay Excel, but ultimately I come back to, we're trying to build a safe roadway for all the roadway users. Yeah, those that come in and out and through Benton County, those that are going to the school, those are living at Villages of Creekside. I think the design of the roadway is good as is. We start moving alignments and shifting and putting additional curves in there and things. It gets harder and harder to say that we're making, big safety improvements with that. And so I do feel like we're in a corner. We're trying to do what's best for the users of our roadways in our county. And Excel knows that and is in the way,
mean,
so to speak, so.
Yeah, if you go to that intersection between 3 and 6 o'clock, I mean, it's really bad. We're just gonna create another problem like we do every place else. So now we're gonna move it up to County 33, that all the trucks that are coming off at 33 are not gonna be able to get on 1 to go north. You can sit there, I've sat there for, 5, 7, 8 minutes trying to get to go north on Central.
I'm glad Commissioner Pop mentioned trucks, and I attached this, or brought this today too. This is part of our design process with the roundabout circles and the location and the alignments. We're having Stonebrook check these things, and we're very cognizant of, truck traffic through here. A common, thanks to our oversized permits, a common carrier is grease or grice transport. Mobile homes. We see a lot of mobile homes for some reason come through this intersection.
stoplights.
So we've made sure our roundabouts and these curves handle that. Doing any more deviation and putting additional curves in there could make that more difficult to get their loads through there. Also, with the extension of 29 to the east, we're hoping that we get to the point where we're diverting a lot of those trucks from going south in front of the school. So we want to make sure if they're coming from the north and they're trying to get to Highway 23, that they can make that kind of left turn movement around that roundabout. So, putting additional curves in there and things like that does make that more challenging for large trucks.
Chair, just to clarify, Chris, we got a 2-lane roundabout there or single lane?
So it's called a 2x1. So we're building it today for the width of 4 lanes going south.
The future.
That means on the north side, it's going to be wide enough to transition from 4 back down to 2. Because in the foreseeable future, Mayhew Lake Road will still be just 2 lanes all the way north and can still handle that traffic. So,
That was my concern. I wanted to make sure the 4-lane was there on the
Yeah.
south side.
Chris, have you, talked to Stearns County, to Jody on, they did that one at 134 last year, west of, Sartell?
oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a huge roundabout, and I know about a year ago, about this time last year, they were moving power poles there.
Yeah, I did reach out to her, and I don't know if she was talking about that one or one that's going on this summer. They had like a $3 million relocation contract they got into with Excel Energy. No, that was 4.5 miles of rural reconstruction, she said. So several more poles, but they were multi-million-dollar with
You
Excel
know,
Energy.
that one there is a huge roundabout.
Yeah.
I mean, I can pull 3 self-loading boxes and get around that one.
Sure. If we were talking to Excel Distribution, which was, again, those are the poles that go to our homes and stuff, that would be a different conversation. Maybe it's different.
And that may
numbers.
be a distribution.
Is it cheaper for them to go underground?
I don't think they can with
They
that
can
high
with
voltage.
those, yeah.
Because once again,
Goes that
transmission, so
substation.
this is like the Northland Reliability Project. Their intent is to go cross-country and connect communities, so.
I guess we're.
So, Mr. Chair, what's the difference between putting stoplights and how much problem are we gonna have with that?
Stoplights are not, we're gonna lose all of our funding from the federal government because it's not not going to safety.
Stoplights kill
And
people.
we lose 440,000 from the APO.
Yep. All of our grant money's
And
gone.
I don't know that the arms for the, what do you call the arms for the stoplight?
Oh, we call those mast arms, yeah.
Mast arms on the stoplights would even fit in there.
Right.
I think we'd still have some conflicts. Yeah, that's the first thing. So we got the $750,000 of safety improvement money because we were gonna put a roundabout in and not a 4-way stop or signal. And then we got the additional 440 because we showed that roundabouts reduce greenhouse gas emissions because you don't have cars stopped idling at red lights and things like that. They're moving through the intersection. And so that would be one downside. We give away $1.1 million of that, so.
So what's our cost right now?
So, okay, so we're thinking about $3 million of construction costs. So we have $1.9 million of our cost for construction, plus this $935,000 for the Excel relocation.
And the city has some of that
They have
on
that
their
too.
plate
Yep.
too.
Yes.
And then if we went with the stoplights, how much is that gonna?
We're not going
We're
up
not
the
going
stop.
to
It's
line.
not gonna happen.
Mr. Chair, we got a motion and a second. Call the question.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Same sign. Motion carries 4-1.
Okay. We will do this. We'll keep this going. We'll bring back more information from Excel before we agree to do anything further.
And I wouldn't be afraid to make sure that,
They get moving, right?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we do what they can to get this moving,
I
so.
would make sure that you voice our opinions on how frustrating this is.
We will, I
cost
will do
level.
that.
And if, I don't care if there's trees that need to be cut that are in their power lines that they have to take care of, we're gonna be on them like, you know what?
Understood.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, could we pause and do community health board?
sure, let's do that one. We will, step away from the, community, or the county board and turn it over to Commissioner Heinen for the community health board.
We'll call it order the Community Health Board. We already know that the roll call, everyone's here, approve or amend the agenda. Anything add to the agenda?
No.
Jacqueline?
No additions.
Mr. Chair, move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda 1 through 3. What would we like to do with that?
move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Jacqueline, do you have anything in front of us today?
I could give you a comment. We just have, so our 3 Public Health AmeriCorps, we partnered with the AmeriCorps for those 3 Public Health Project Coordinators. We did get an announcement last week that we will have our 3 members that are placed with our site for the 24 to 25 year. So we'll have them starting, 2 of them starting in July, and then Tina, who's been with us this last year, will be returning as well. So we're excited to have her back.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank
And then
you.
with that, I want to thank Tim from the Herald for posting the Safe Routes to School project. I think that was very nice, very good article, you know, and thanks to Mariah, APO, everybody involved with that. Because it's right, it's only a block away from my house and it actually is working very well. I just think that other agencies in the county that do things outside in the area should get recognized, just not public health.
Yep.
Everybody else, we should do that. Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll adjourn the CHP at 10:40.
Okay, Monty, do we wanna go in the ditch right away? Yeah, cause Mike is not here.
Mike I got an email from Matt. He said they're about 25 minutes behind, so they should be arriving any time. But if ditches, you think it's gonna be pretty brief? Is there anything, is there such a thing as a brief ditch meeting though?
Not these days.
Well, we could just make it brief, right,
Sure,
Commissioner
sure.
Johnson?
Are you handing it over?
I'm handing it over.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Benson. We'll call the Benton County Ditch Authority meeting to order. Again, roll call has been done already. Move on to approval or amendments to the agenda. Chris, any changes?
I have no changes.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Move on to the consent agenda. There is one item, approve or amend the meeting minutes from May 21.
So move.
Second?
Motion and second to approve those minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Chris, update on county ditch project.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a public update. So since the last meeting, we do have I have an additional meeting scheduled to discuss, those wetland areas, that was much talked about at the last board meeting and see what we can do to move forward with, some sort of partial repair, or something like that. So don't have those answers yet. That meeting is scheduled next week, I believe it is. It's on my calendar. So we're moving forward with that. So
And we also talked yesterday briefly about potentially setting up a subcommittee, so we probably need to have that discussion when we do some dates, to set up a subcommittee of the ditch authority.
Subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
yeah, and that we can talk about. Yeah, by the time that meeting gets scheduled, I fully expect to have some answers on or some suggestions on which direction to go.
So we'll schedule that after your next week's meeting then.
Sure. So yeah, and I have that on my computer so I can make sure we have that date there. The additional work with the spoil piles and all that rock, I'd reached out to the contractor, Hellman Construction, to provide me with some prices. We had actually laid out 3 different options for them to consider. One of them was to haul out a volume that we had kind of estimated of the spoil pile, just remove it from the project and dispose of it wherever they find a cost-effective location. Another second option was to kind of spread that pile out farther amongst the trees, even beyond 16.5 feet or the 25 feet that we had cleared out, and not remove any more trees. And then the third option was to go ahead and remove some more trees adjacent to where they already did and try to spread that pile out there. So I'd received a text back from them and I asked them to put that in writing in an email. I'm still waiting for that. But just to put that into context, the first option of hauling it out, they said $18,000 for that quantity that we estimated around that one property, kind of around the corner, to haul out that material. The second option, to spread around the trees without removing any more, was $10,000. To remove some more trees and spread around in that area, it was $15,000. So,
Chris, we had also talked about yesterday the potential of maybe placing some of that rock into the banks.
yeah.
So we're gonna.
I think that would be my next step, would be to reach back out to them and suggest that, and maybe have them revise their estimates to do that work.
I guess, my personal opinion is if we put ourselves in the shoes of that landowner.
Yeah.
Spreading dirt out already farther than we've gone, an additional 25, or beyond the 25 foot, removing more trees, the rock's still there.
Right.
I don't know that solves a lot of things, and I don't think we're gonna get a lot of buy-in from that. I think we gotta look at a plan B, and that's what we're kinda talking about here.
I've seen that there. I kind of like that idea too. If we can kind of use some of that large stone and use that as riprap in areas that are of concern, that seems like a good use of it, and we're not having to haul that miles away or anything.
We saw a lot of great water movement there yesterday, and it's actually already cutting into the ditch.
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah, no doubt. We've restored the drainage, which is the goal of a repair project. So.
In some ditches.
Yeah, in some ditches, yeah,
Not all of it.
exactly. Anything else, Chris?
The only thing is, what we talk about too, we do have a draft repair report for CD 10, and that's something that I think would be a good topic to discuss at the drainage subcommittee meeting.
And an update on CD 12 at all? That'd be also there?
Oh, we could talk about that. We could talk about next steps for that. Yeah, there's no really update. We've received a repair petition. And that's kind of where we're at with that ditch right now. So.
And then after a conversation last night briefly with Representative Schultz, could you please forward CD 14's repair report to him?
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
I can do that.
All right, anything else? County ditches, we're adjourned at 10:45. Pass back to the chair.
That was the quickest
Huh?
ditch
What
meeting
else
we've
did you
had. Great.
That was nice.
All right, Monty, we're gonna move on to Micah.
Allow me a moment to open up the Micah presentation.
How was the drive up?
Good, we came from St. Cloud and it went a little bit longer, so apologies.
Not a problem.
That's what usually happens in Sturgis.
It does, yeah. That's, you're right.
Yep.
Yep.
Next meeting.
23 is pretty nice.
How'd you like to get in that spot? I think it's pretty cut and dry. Well, I know, it's still not fun.
Wow. Wow.
Oops. So, there you go. Excellent. Thanks, Monty.
Good morning, Mr. Chair
Morning.
and members. Matt Mossman, Executive Director of the Inter-County Association. Thank you for your flexibility. Yes, we were in Stearns this morning. It actually is a beautiful morning and drive up. It sounds like we're going to get some more rain on the way back. I was also joking at Stearns that we had quite a bit of traffic detours and projects and construction going on, which in our line of work we consider a successful drive up. So, so thank you. I will get at it. I think that this legislative session, I like to start just with a little bit of framing, and we really appreciate. I start with thank yous too, because that way I don't forget them at the end. But I really want to thank Commissioner Pop and Kapinski for service on Micah's board of directors, and for all of you for participating. It was fantastic to have so many of you down in Winona County for our annual meeting. We really look forward to those opportunities to both talk to legislators directly, and we hope to have more of those as we go into the 2024 session, 2025 session. So 2024, really, to understand it, I think, is it was on the heels of 2023. There's really no other way to say it. The 2023 legislative session was, in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this, a historic session just in terms of the amount of resource that was allocated in the surplus and the amount of policy and budget legislation that was taken up. And that really set the groundwork still for 2024. The appetite was just as large. There was a significant legislative agenda that was being brought forward by the majorities. Parties in particular. More bills were introduced by far in this two-year biennium than have ever been introduced in the history of the legislature with Minnesota. That left a situation where there was a constant effort to try and rein in the expectations, if you will. And I'm not sure that the session ever quite got there, but a focus was intended to be on the capital investment and bonding bill and on fix-its, which we had a stake in a number of the fix-it conversations, but when so much happened in 2023, fix-it meant that there was an awful lot of pieces of legislation that needed implementation issues and some adjustments and changes that were brought forward by the state agencies. And then, of course, there was the context that it was a non-budgeting year and an effort to sort of keep expectations small. With that, you'll see a lot of the county priorities that we had going into, and we'll talk about the specifics of some of those. But when you look at that list and the context that was set, I think we'd have to say that it was another really successful session for the legislature for counties. I say that in large part because, again, if you look at that, the limited resources that were that leaders ultimately agreed to put into new efforts this year, $424 million of one-time money was allocated this legislative session in most of that one time in the 2024-25 biennium. 109 million of that, fully 25% of that, was dedicated to the legislature's commitment to follow through and fund a settlement fund for the Tyler v. Hennepin U.S. Supreme Court decision. This state budget ends with one of the healthiest state budget conditions that in the nearing 30 years of doing this work that I have ever seen. I'll focus on the green column, 2 rows there at the bottom of the third column from the left. The legislative session ends after that $424 million was allocated with $3.291 billion on the bottom line, on top of $3.263 billion of budget reserve. If you look at the spending, the biennial spending of $70.9 billion that's in the budget, that means almost 10% of, there's almost a 10% cushion, if you will, in this biennium. So why was the legislature wanting to rein in expectations around new spending this session? It had a lot to do with those orange columns or those 2 rows and numbers that are highlighted in orange off to the right-hand side, second column from the right. When we look out into what's projected for the 26-27 biennium, there's what we call a structural imbalance. So there's estimates now are that less revenue will come in during that biennium in that current period than spending that's projected, and usually you like to see that imbalance. That has narrowed quite a bit from a year ago this time, and with the strong economy, there's a good chance that it will continue to narrow, and of course, this also builds inflation in. So that's sort of the context of why there was a really limited appetite to do things that were ongoing, which left a lot of opportunity for one-time things, which was what we needed in the settlement money. So that brings us to the $109 million, something that was just really, again, this was a state law that was ruled unconstitutional, a very prescriptive state law that we administer. So we really felt strongly, importantly, that this was money that the legislature should step up and fund, and they most certainly did. This is not money that goes to counties. This is money that will go to claimants under the settlement agreement for the look-back period that goes back 7 years. So you may recall that there was sort of 2 pieces to responding to the U.S. Supreme Court decision. One was to address past claims, and that's where this money will go. And the second was to change the law going forward so that it meets the expectations of the U.S. Supreme Court decision. What we refer to as the policy language. Those were on separate trajectories. The policy bill language needed to go to more committees in the legislative process. We had anticipated in the last week of session that they would meet back up and go into one bill. There was some questions that were raised and some late changes that came in that I'll talk about a bit on the policy language in the last week of session, and so they just ended up passing in separate bills. So the money bill, you can see how it had such broad support, passed 127-0 in the House and 66-0 in the Senate. It does require that counties that have inventory of lands that have been forfeited under the property forfeiture a law for non-payment of tax in the last 7 years, those counties will have to make all counties will have to make a good faith effort to sell those lands, and 75% of the proceeds will go back to the state to help offset some of that $109 million. 85% of the proceeds in the 2 years between 2027 July 1 and 2029 July 1. Then you can see some of the other requirements, both on this chart and the next page that I'll get to, where I have the additional items. Those were provisions that were added in the last week of session as some additional concerns came forward around just wanting to make doubly sure, if you will, that everything is done to protect and preserve home ownership to the greatest extent possible. So there is an expectation that when these lands are sold, that if they are residential units or unapproved units, that for a certain period of time they will be offered with the hope intent that the buyers are intending to use them as a residence, and then some additional notification requirements. So that is the money piece, which again addresses any retroactive claims. All counties are presumed to be participating counties unless you affirmatively take steps to say you don't want to be a participating county, which I would not recommend doing. And so this addresses all of those issues for counties. Then we had the policy change provisions, House File 4822 Feist, Senate File 4895 Westland. Again, those two legislators led a tremendously complicated conversation around. This is not everything that counties were recommending, but this really circled back to take in a lot of the county recommended preferences and recommendations for how the law be adjusted in order to work better going forward. You will hear us talk throughout the day today a lot about House File 5247. This language ended up, along with lots of other language we'll talk about today, in a final nearly 1,500-page bill that passed in the last hour of legislative session. A number of these provisions were traveling separately with support from the legislature and weren't getting, and this was the vehicle to get them completed by the midnight deadline on Sunday. Key provisions for the tax forfeiture policy language that are different is it requires a sale. So going forward, when a property is forfeited, it will require a sale by auction within 6 months of the expiration of redemption. It'll establish a claims process for distributing surplus value, if any. It defines minimum bid. That minimum bid does not include all the county costs we wanted in there, but quite a few of the county costs that we hope for. It certainly doesn't include cleanup and demolition and other costs that counties too often occur. There got to be a growing understanding and appreciation of those costs throughout the legislative process as more and more legislators. This went through more committees. That was helpful to understanding the issues that counties face, but it didn't leave us with the resources to address those issues. So we'll have to return next legislative session to pick up that issue. And then I'm gonna just drop down some of the other provisions there relate more to many of the mineral and forested counties in northern Minnesota. I'm gonna drop down to the additional item. These were items again that were added at the end. Again, the concern was around making sure, and I would say doubly sure, if you will, that the sale process, when it does happen, does everything that it can to both preserve home ownership to the greatest extent possible, and also to deliver the highest value. Now, those are things that counties were already doing. Just as a reminder, there's a 3-year redemption period, one of the longest redemption periods in the country. So there's a lot of notifications during that period for homeowners. But the items that came in at the end were creation of a housing support account that is funded from a new appropriation from the state general fund, not from counties. There is a change to a notification that was already in law around the delinquent tax list publication and notification to homeowners that includes some information on property tax relief programs that are available. Then there was a requirement that for the first 30 days that a property is sold on auction when it gets past the redemption period, that it be sold at its that it be marketed for sale at its estimated market value before the price can be dropped to the minimum bid price. And then there was a broader notification requirement. All things that I think we as associations and the Department of Revenue and others will be working to bring better set of information to Benton and all other counties in the months coming up here, just to help facilitate, help you do your next steps and work on implementation. So I'm gonna finish on this slide, and then Mr. Novak will come up and talk about transportation. House File 5247 again was the tax bill. As both the House and Senate went into tax conference committee, there was quite a few other provisions that would have impacted counties. There was not consensus between the House and Senate on only a handful of items that were in the tax bill. Most dealing with child care tax credit, some other state programs, and a minerals article. So in the end of the day, this 1,500-page bill did not include very many tax items. These are the things that it did not include that would have impacted counties. There was no change to state aids. Both bills had some one-time increase in SCORE grant dollars going into the conference committee. That was not in the bill. The House bill had an elimination of the sunset on the homeless prevention aid program and some one-time increase in money. That was not in the bill. There was an increase on the Senate side in soil water conservation district aid. That was not in the bill. There was also last legislative session, a task force created to look at the conditions under which the state might put a law in place that would allow cities and counties, governing bodies, with a voter-approved referendum to put a sales tax in place for certain capital infrastructure rather than having to go to the legislature for a special law authorization. Both bills had a version of those recommendations from that task force included in their omnibus bill. But they also had some differences that were enough they just couldn't resolve, and so that'll be taken up, I presume, again, next legislative session. So that was not in the bill. No changes to local sales tax authorization. It does not impact any previously approved special laws for local sales taxes. And then the Senate had an issue that I know you've heard me talk about that we are continuously thinking should be done on a statewide basis and advocating for, but seems to only get addressed on a case-by-case basis, and I know has some relevancy for your county as well. But there was, the Senate had quite a few individual refund exemptions for the construction materials that are paid by local governments for public projects. None of those were included in the bill. Not a philosophical opposition, I don't think, in any way to adopting those. There just wasn't very many things agreed to in the tax area. So I will take questions on any of that now. Otherwise, I'll be back up at the end for a short.
Matt, question for you on the tax,
Yeah.
on the construction tax. If by some reason our project moved forward, we started in, let's just say, February of next year or something like that, would we be able to do retro back, or would we be held to paying all those taxes because it never made it in this bill?
You would be able to do retro back. Again, it's up to, would be up, as it currently sits, either up to the legislature if they passed a statewide provision to do that statewide provision with a retroactive effective date, or if it was a project for your specific project,
Okay.
to set a retroactive effective date. Thank you.
Do you have any?
Morning.
Morning.
Steve Novak, I handle transportation for Micah, and it's always nice to be in Benton County. So it's a nice.
Better
drive
than
over there.
Stearns, right?
Yeah. Right. We had the
Tell
comparison.
them we said that.
Well, let me take you through what did and didn't happen in transportation this year. It was quite a year, really. I think I can say that the vast majority of Micah's transportation issues were wrapped up inside 4 bills. They had an omnibus transportation policy bill, an omnibus transportation finance bill, and then 2 basically bonding bills, a pure bonding bill and a cash bill. The first 2 issues, the bond or the finance and policy, they did pass. We'll give you the details on that. Unfortunately, the 2 bonding provisions, the bonding bills did not pass, and we'll tell you that story too. Let me start with House File 3436, which was the Omnibus Transportation Policy Bill. It's now Chapter 104. This was a good story from the standpoint it was very bipartisan. There's a number of policy issues in there, but they're overwhelmingly not controversial. There was one issue that did directly relate to our Micah transportation platform, which has to do with not desiring to see exceptions to truck weights around the state because of the wear and tear on the roads and the fact that the system itself still needs a lot of investment to get up to form. We had a good year in that area. We had very few exceptions to with truck weight exemptions. There were 2. One had to do with sewage trucks performing emergency services, which is a pretty limited application around the state. And the other one was very geographically specific up in East Grand Forks having to do with special sugar beet hauling weight exemptions up there, which has a lot to do with the kind of the type of monster trucks that come across the border from North Dakota to help with the sugar beet situation. Those were the only two exemptions, and so we were pretty pleased with that. The second bill I want to talk to you about, which Matt referenced, House File 5242, was unique in a couple of ways. It was the Transportation Omnibus Finance Bill, but it got combined at the end of the session with the Omnibus Labor Bill and the Omnibus Housing Bill. So you had three pretty distinctly different bills that in the end pass as a package, but they're kind of heard and discussed separately. And this particular bill had quite a final week of the session. We had many committee meetings on it, and the Wednesday before the deadline day, it did pass, the conference report passed out onto the floor of the House. It sat there till Saturday, the second to the last day, and then it was broken apart and sent back into conference committee. It became the vehicle for the solution to the ongoing dispute involving Lyft and Uber. And so it did some good there, I guess. But then at the end, like Matt had referenced, it became part of the famous House File 5247, the tax bill. It was one of the 6 or 7 major issues that got put into what became that 1,500-page bill. And it passed the Senate on the final vote with about 3 to 5 minutes to spare at midnight on Sunday night. So let me just touch on the highlights of that bill from a transportation standpoint. Well, there was very little money put into the bill in terms of cash allocation, about $4 million. Through cancellations and some other kind of financial maneuverings, there was $117.5 million in transportation-related areas that did involve putting some money into the Corridors of Commerce program and the state road construction program. Probably as important or more important were some of the policy provisions. They did establish a Minnesota Advisory Council on Infrastructure, which it's hoped over time will help us better control the costs of some of these projects and create a better structure to prioritize the ones that we do. The big issue, though, that we spent a lot of time on, and Micah engineers like yours, Chris Bird back here, had a real impact on this transportation greenhouse gas emission assessment issue, which we all spent a lot of time on. That was a bill that was passed in 2023. Well, most of the attention was on all of the money that was being spent. And you had to kind of prioritize where you spent your time and effort. And we did have a record year that year for money in transportation. But the work of the county engineers, I think, was extremely significant in the task force that was created out of that law. And they met every other week from July of 2023 to February of 2024. Out of that came 3 or 4 fairly major changes that have helped us find a better way to deal with some of these difficult issues. For one thing, they changed the project analysis requirements from a single project-to-project basis to a portfolio of projects around the state, which gives us more flexibility to make changes, fit the structure we're supposed to fit without, but mitigating some of the problems that otherwise go with that. It also creates an ongoing technical advisory committee, which we hope will include city and county engineers. We've made that case as strong as we can, and we hope that will be the case. But regardless, the creation of the structure of an advisory committee on technical issues, we think is going to be very important. It's already helped mitigate this issue, and over time, I think it'll do a lot more than that. And then we retain safety as a top priority in terms of prioritizing road and bridge projects, which is something that otherwise would have been changed, I think, for the worse in most people's minds. So those were all, I think, important policy changes. Our engineers had a lot to do with those changes taking place. And just the whole idea that the policymakers have now accepted the fact that they should continue to get advice from the technical people is major progress. That takes me to the bonding bills, which I've already said didn't pass. House File 5220, House File 5162. One of the things that or one of the things that's not gonna happen, at least not for another year, that would have happened, was the creation of what they called replacement accounts, later called preservation accounts, which was something that we were opposed to, so we've got an extra year to work on that in terms of the bonding bills to come. The one thing we have to go from for next year in a bonding bill is the two chairs with about 4 days to go made public the framework they thought should be the bonding bill, which would have been about a $950 million bill. 110 million of that roughly would have been dedicated to local roads, bridges, the local road wetland program, our priorities, frankly, that didn't occur because there was no bill. We're able to lobby, we're able to testify, but under the Constitution, the only people that have the right to vote are the legislators, and if they choose not to, we don't have a good strategy for that. And so that's what led to the final results, and I'll rest with that and be happy to answer any questions. If I might, Mr. Chair, I'm just gonna add one final personal comment. I've been doing this a long time. This was my 50th session. Always enjoyed coming out to Benton County. But I am gonna be retiring from Micah in September, so I wanted to thank the board and Monty, the administrator, and a special thanks to my friend back here, Chris Bird, who I've spent a lot of time with, learned a lot from him. But on behalf of myself and Micah, I just wanna say thank you for the courtesies extended to me and our organization over the years, and I wish you well. You got a great county, and I'm sure it'll only get better and better, so thank you for
Congratulations.
everything. Appreciate it.
Hey, Steve, I got a question. So we were talking yesterday about the districts for the local wetland replacement act, and, ours is one of the highest in the state. And is there any way we can get moved out of that district that includes the North Metro and into the one to the north of us?
We'll have to talk to Bowser about that, see if we can get a coalition. I think it'll take a statutory change, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
It was a state.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I am not retiring, just saying, just for the record. Nancy Selesky and I cover Health and Human Services for Micah, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Let's see, are we on the right spot? Oh, a little bit off here. Okay, I got this. So I'm gonna start with the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act. So it's actually the second bullet there. This is something the legislature's been working on for a number of years, and they did make progress on it this year. And what they've done is there's going to be a 2-year phase-in program that's going to be Hennepin and Ramsey only for 2 years, and then they need to report back findings. There's a working group that's associated with that that will oversee and provide guidance to that phase-in program. At our request, Micah did get a position, to be able to appoint a position on that board. We wanted to make sure, or on that committee, we wanted to make sure that counties of all sizes and geographical balance was considered as they're looking at this, moving towards statewide implementation. So we're on that. We'll consult with AMC, MAXA, and others and make sure that we have the right people on that working group. The working group is to develop an implementation plan by September 1 of 2026, and then the effective date for going statewide is January 1st of 2027. Next item is the Emergency Medical Services EMS funding. This is a bill that had a lot of action, frankly. There was an original ask of $120 million for certain ambulance areas that were really struggling in greater Minnesota. In the end, they provided 2 appropriations, one for $24 million for certain, again, ambulance services, and then they're doing a $6 million Sprint Medic pilot program in 3 counties. And this is a model where there'll be a vehicle that's roaming kind of around the area and responding at the same time that the actual ambulance does. But if they get there first, they can then determine whether that ambulance is even necessary. So often the vehicle, you don't get reimbursed if the vehicle is empty. So sometimes you've got folks that are just being, helped up or, something like that and don't need a ride to the hospital. And so it's intended to make this more efficient and hopefully reduce some unnecessary expenses, et cetera. So that did pass, one-time appropriation, and it's good until June of 2026. As you're all aware, Health and Human Services can be tough to follow. It has many different committees and subcommittees involved. As an example, this year, one of the bills that we were following, the Children and Families Bill, was actually tucked into the Education Bill at the end. So we were we were watching that as well. So I'm going to start with that bill. That was not part of the end of session mega bill. It did pass on its own. I'm going to call it the Representative Pinto Senator Wickland bill, signed into law by the governor, again as a standalone bill. It has language relating to child protection and welfare. It requires a review of child fatalities and near fatalities, requires counties to establish local child mortality review teams, and DHS is required to provide training and support to counties for that purpose. They are creating a new Supreme Court Council on Child Protection. DHS is directed to review systems in other states to see what's happening in other states in terms of making a recommendation on a common entry point for all of the calls that go in reporting child maltreatment. DHS is also required to develop an information system, a new IT system dealing with child welfare. We did get SSIS money, $10 million this year, and DHS is to consult with counties. And they did put $1 million into child care improvement grants. There is language that allows child care centers and family child care providers to develop a policy regarding immunizations for children over 2 months of age. They created a family child care ombudsperson, and that is funded at $350,000 a year. And I just want to highlight that one of the things that we really wanted to see was not included in the final agreement, and that was the child welfare fiscal analysis. We were really pushing this because we want to highlight what it is that counties put into the system for child protection in terms of property taxes, and we'll continue to work on that. It just didn't make it this time. So moving on to the Hoffman-Noor bill, this is the Human Services Budget Bill. There are a number of changes to min choices that we've been working on for a while. It does allow counties to continue contracting for min choices assessments. It modifies the timeline in which a county must visit an individual who has requested an assessment from 20 calendar days to 20 working days. And it extends the validity of min choices assessments from 60 days to 365 days. I just want to point out that the county's proposal for a streamlined process regarding reassessments, for those folks whose situations are not going to change, we were hoping to be able to get some help there in terms of having a less comprehensive assessment or reassessment each year. Unfortunately, that does have it does connect with the federal government, and so it does carry a cost, and so we'll be coming back to that. We're not looking to not meet with these folks, but just not put them through the grueling 7, 8, 9 hour reassessment that they now have to do every year. This bill also contains a task force on guardianship, creating a task force on guardianship. It does include a county employee. And they did do some things on jail health. DHS is directed to submit a waiver for an MA demonstration project to provide health care and coordination services to bridge community-based services for individuals that are in correctional facilities as they're about to leave the facilities. It also creates a reentry services working group and does include county representation on that group as well. And finally, there's a pilot program to provide payment to counties to support correctional facilities that are administering long-acting injectable antipsychotic medication for mental health treatment. Another thing you've heard a lot about is the priority admissions and civil commitment, the so-called 48-hour rule where people that were in jails were moved first into direct care and treatment. There was a work group that worked very hard over the interim, or excuse me, and then again, they're still going, but they've been doing it for about 1.5 years now. And, the reality is we need beds. There's a capacity issue. We need it at the local level, we need it at the state level, and we did not make a lot of progress there. Not a budget year, coming back, I think the fiscal note on fixing the entire system is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So, it's just a very broken system. But we did make some progress, and I would just mention that last year we received a county cost share exemption for those folks that are deemed mentally ill and dangerous and are awaiting a bed at one state-operated facility going to another. We added the people that are coming from corrections to that list for a certain period of time. That does sunset in June of 2025, and so we're continuing to have that conversation, as is this task force. They did modify a little bit of the 48-hour rule for people coming from jails by using a framework to prioritize who should go first. Looking at things like the length of time the person's been on the waiting list, one's medical acuity, whether they're a danger to themselves or others, things like that. They did create an extension of the task force, so they're going to continue their work, and they are to come back with a report February of next year, 2025, again, about the 48-hour problem, and again, about the capacity issue. There is going to be a mentally ill and dangerous civil commitment reform task force. There are 3 county appointments on that task force. And they did provide a limited exception to up to 10 patients that are currently being boarded in hospital settings. These are folks, again, that have been civilly committed but have nowhere to go. There was a doctor from HCMC that testified one day that they've had a patient in their hospital for 2 years. So you can imagine what they're looking at, and that person's not getting the treatment that they so desperately need. So there's 10 folks from the hospitals that will be, bumped up. There was talk of closing the Carleton Cares facility. That did not happen. That will remain open. And then they did also include DCT facilities need to offer free communication, telephone calls for patients and clients while they're in their DCT facilities. That's an extension of what was done for jails last year. I think it was last year. Couple of things public health related. I just want to mention the ORAC, the Opioid Response Group. There was a sunset on that group. They eliminated that sunset, so that continues. There was no cost for it to continue, but just had to get that off the books. And then this is something troublesome for public health. The state is booking savings of $7 million by reducing the cannabis education grant, and that does go directly to local health departments. And so my understanding is the department borrowed from the other department. And so we need to, stay on top of that, but that is something I just wanted to mention. They also eliminated parental fees for parents whose children receive MA in disability or residential settings. They did transition the loan program for nursing homes that they started last year for those financially distressed nursing homes, and it can now be used for other long-term services and supports in addition to nursing homes. And then they are DHS is directed to consult with counties to improve case management information systems. So that was Hoffman-Noor. Then we go on to health, and that is Senator Wickland and Representative Liebling. And again, both of these bills were put in that big bill, the 1,400-page, 1,500-page bill at the end of session. I'm going to start with the commissioner by next year, January 15th, has to report to the legislature on an alternative healthcare model and a county-administered rural medical assistance model, or CARMA. So we have they'll be working with counties and county-based purchasing plans in terms of developing that model. They set a telecommunications fee at 12 cents per month per line for the operation and maintenance of the 988 suicide prevention and crisis system. Another thing that we've been working on for a while there was action on this year, and that is the development of a covered benefit under MA to provide residential mental health crisis stabilization for children. We have it for adults, we don't have it for kids, so there are kids that are going out of state for services. This does require the commissioner to report findings after consultation with us, tribes, providers, advocates, et cetera. And that report is due next October of 2025. In terms of health insurance, I just want to mention prior authorization. They made some changes to the process for folks that are receiving outpatient mental health treatment or chronic health conditions and outpatient SUD, substance abuse treatment, excluding the drugs. The meds turned out, the fiscal note was too high when they looked at that, so they're just looking at the services for that. But that will help in terms of the barrier that folks that are struggling face going through that process all the time. They also added rural mental health service providers to eligible recipients of mental health services grants. And this is outside of the 7-county metro area, and it can't be the larger cities in the state, including Duluth, Mankato, Moorhead, Rochester, or St. Cloud. They are directing the Commissioner of Health to put out an RFI to assist in conducting a comprehensive evaluation of current healthcare needs and capacity in Minnesota. And there's also language that requires counties to notify an Indian child's tribe no later than 24 hours after receiving information on a missing child. Those were kind of the highlights in that health bill. There's a lot of other stuff, and you're going to be receiving a big report, but those are the highlights. Finally, I just want to call out your staff. I work closely with both Sandy Schoberg and Jacqueline Litfin, and I just wanted to highlight that and mention that they're great to work with and represent not only you, but the county statewide. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Got any questions on EMS?
No, I know the EMS, it seems like a win, but it's a very small dollar amount in the scheme of things. But it's a start.
Right. They did start with $120 million ask. And it was, I have to say, it was a bipartisan group of legislators. They really came from all over and said, this has got to get done. Just, it was helpful. But $30 million is not 120, and I'm sure that they're going to be back.
And they're reorganizing the, was it EMSRB or whatever? They're building a state board now.
Correct, right.
So.
Everything transfers over to that, to that board.
It's a start. We gotta keep going, because if we got all these districts that are, our medical services board districts, if we have to put all these back because we lose funding back into the county level, it's gonna cost everybody more money than what these boards consist of right now, so.
It's a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have a few other items aboard that we work on. Just a couple quick additions on the EMS. The 26 is certainly much less than the $120 million, which was the initial ask. I think the other piece is that the formula also became more constrained. So I think more of that 26 proportionally will go to Greater Minnesota than would have of the 120. So there was also some adjustment in terms of refining who gets it and under the conditions, which I think will be helpful for the Greater Minnesota challenge that's being faced. And then real quick on the watershed districts, I think that they're, not watershed districts, on the road wetland, how those boundaries are crafted, I think they also relate to the watershed boundaries and where Bowser sees the water flowing and trying to align with those boundaries, which is likely why you're situated where you're situated. Just real quick then, it's sort of then transitioning into environment issues, because that is an issue that is covered in multiple areas. Certainly bonding bill is where we need the resources. There was a lot of work done around mitigation of nitrates in groundwater and conversation. I don't have that on the slideshow. A lot of that dealt with southeastern Minnesota counties in the karst region, but also supporting testing and monitoring statewide. The big thing that happened in the environment, and we have tried to pick up our work for MICA over the last couple years in the environment area, because especially in solid waste, that has a lot of impacts on local governments. The omnibus environment budget bill that was adopted included a new packaging waste reduction act, is what it's packaging waste and cost reduction act, I think is technically what folks are wanting to call it, but it's an extended producer responsibility system that will be set up over the next couple of years, whereby anyone who is anyone who's branding packaging into Minnesota will have to become part of an extended producer responsibility organization. They will pay fees into that organization. Those fees will help both to create greater recyclability of the material, as well as to help pay for some of the systems and networks that then try to steer that into recycling and instead of going into landfills, including, I think it'll help offset some of the costs that counties now, you'll be able to get some reimbursement that counties now undertake for that work. Packaging is 40% of the waste stream right now. So there's still a lot of other waste stream out there that you all know you have to deal with, but that's a significant part of the waste stream. And then in the interest of time, I'll just note that back to the fix-it notion, there was a number of implementation-related changes and other changes related to the sick and safe time law, related to the paid family medical leave, related to the cannabis law, related to some election law cleanups and funding changes, including some new policy items in the election law. Those are all things that will be in our post-session summary, and happy to go into details if you have questions. The one item on here that will involve some additional cost, clearly, and more on the part of counties, is that there was an increase for the para-correctional plan. For your membership that is part of that plan, there is an increase in the annuity upon retirement, so the annuity multiplier to determine what your benefit will be. So that benefit will be higher, and to offset or to pay for those costs going forward, there will be an increase both in employer and employee contribution to the para-correctional plan that will have some impact, and I've passed that information on, and we'll provide more details on that. So that's where things are at. Happy to answer any questions on any of that. I will just say that the other thing that happened last year in 2023 is that the legislature changed their start date for a new legislative cycle to the second Tuesday instead of the first Tuesday following the first Monday in January. So a little bit less of a cramped start date relative to the beginning of the calendar year. So the legislative session will start on January 14th, 2025, after only the House is up for election this year, so after the fall elections. Happy to answer any questions.
Board?
Matt, can you comment at all about our new member, or is that not?
We don't have one yet.
Okay.
So we'll comment on that when we have
get
one.
it
But
official.
we are hopeful. We think it would be fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you for all the information.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Again, congratulations, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you, and now we can turn to, I'm looking at your administrator, but now at least I can turn to some analysis on property tax information that I'm hoping to get to you. I don't have for you yet. But we can really look forward to interim issues and appreciate the opportunity to hear any concerns that you have or additional issues as we get set for 2024.
I have
25.
Wow.
25, yeah.
Jeez.
Crazy. Thank you.
Thank you
Yep,
all.
thank you.
We appreciate you driving up.
Thank you.
Even though I had to go through Stearns.
Yeah.
We're heading to Norms.
You're heading where?
To Norms.
Okay.
Yeah, on our way.
Nice.
You guys don't know that yet.
All right. Yeah, we'll backtrack a little bit here. All right, committee updates. Seems like a theory, but
I'll
let's keep
start.
them a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I'll start. Just had HS Director profile position. I also had the Regional Homelessness Task Force. We just started again. Small group, and that was last Friday, and that's all I had.
I can go next. I was able to go to the City of Gilman's council meeting on the 21st, as we discussed yesterday a little bit on a road tour. I think they're understanding that we're gonna proceed with CASAD 3 and 5, and they're gonna continue to reach out for funding that they can, but they know that we're gonna move ahead, so. Of course, they're very disappointed with the lack of bonding possibility this year.
Yeah.
Highway 23 Coalition Board meeting on the 22nd, along with Commissioner Heinen and the Human Services Director. Ideas, was able to meet with Amanda for a business retention meeting, distinctive cabinets here in Foley. That was very good. Met for about an hour and a half. Quite a complex they have there. Tri-County Solid Waste, we had a joint board meeting with Pope Douglas, and then we had our regular meeting after that. Also another business retention meeting with Silt Sock here in Foley. I was able to at least get on the first part of that of the tour. I hadn't been through that before, so that's quite a facility there. I'll just also share, Jason shared with us $110,000 in property taxes there at that facility. It's a city, so. Of course, we had our cow road tour yesterday. Thank you again, Chris. It was well designed. We got a lot of good information. Was able to see a lot of different things. And Commissioner Pop and I were at our extension committee meeting last night. You'll be seeing some updates coming for our memorandum of agreement. That is going up significantly that they're proposing. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, on back on the 21st, we had library, we set the 2025 budget. We will see a decrease. It's just a matter of how much, because we had a little issue with some numbers, and we're going to meet again on 18th of, the finance committee is gonna meet on the 18th of June. I don't know where we'll land. We'll land somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000, I would think, on a decrease in funding. We had BEP, again, we're gonna work on the budget, and Commissioner Kapinski's gonna work on that, cause I will be gone at that time. And then Tri-County Solid Waste always seems to be an adventure. And the extension committee last night, more updates to come on that.
The GSDC had their all investors meeting and awards. I sat in on the legislative update from AMC, and a lot of that was covered on what ended with sessions. And then I was at the representative debriefing last night in Sauk Rapids. One other bill that they had mentioned was 4712, that deals more with the social issues, if anybody's interested, what they do with that one.
All right,
HR,
you good?
that was it.
Okay. I had my EMSRB meeting last week. We kinda heard that. It's a bridge gap right now. We got 2 years of funding, but we're all preaching that if we don't get funding moving forward, it's gonna come back on the county level, and it's gonna be way more cost to each county than keeping this board together. With that, the road tour yesterday was really good. Here's the deal, I don't need to see roads that are beat up and everything like that, but you really get an advantage riding in the back of a bus. And you can feel it, and with that said, I'm gonna take and kinda say what I said yesterday is I'm gonna rely on the three of you guys to give me what our priorities need to be moving forward. Common sense is a key from yesterday on these ditches. I literally am so upset at these ditches and the thinking of these state agencies right now. I can't even.
Yeah.
What are they doing? What are they thinking? It's so frustrating. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and we need to figure out, we need to take pictures, aerial, of exactly what Bowser and all of, I'm gonna say, I got some words I wanna use for describing these individuals, but they got lack of common sense and draining a wetland. I mean, these ditches have been here way before all these wetlands. Or they were built because of the wetlands. So we need to figure something out here. So I'll leave it at that. That's all I got.
Mr. Chair, I had one visit with Amanda at DeBow Textile too last week.
Okay, Monty, committees of the whole.
None.
None?
Motion to approve.
Dozens. Okay, so at the last board meeting, you scheduled a budget presentations for August 19th, which displaced the August Human Services Community Health Board Committee of the Whole. So we wanted to attempt to reschedule that one for August. So I wanted to suggest, looks like here, Monday, August 12th. Sorry, Monday, August 5th, Monday, August 12th, or Tuesday, August 13th. To reschedule this is like the standing, Human Services Community Health Board cows.
I would prefer not to do the 5th. I'm open the 12th or the 13th.
It's the 5th?
I would prefer not to do the 5th.
Prefer not, okay. So then it's the 12th or the 13th.
Let's do the 12th.
Yeah,
Monday the 12th? Okay. All right, that's one.
So be in the morning?
Yep.
Yeah, I think in the past those have started when?
9 to 11.
9? Yeah. Yeah, 9. So I made you all aware of the issue raised by Sheriff Heck regarding jail staffing issues. We probably should have a committee of the whole on that matter. Troy would like to meet with you all before he does his August budget presentation. So late June, early July.
July 9th, open.
We could do
We're
July.
doing HR director
Oh, that's
reviews
right.
in the morning on that. Yeah.
July 8th.
No, can't do that.
We're doing human services.
Services,
director,
yeah.
And one water, one plan meeting that day.
July 15th.
Looks good.
I have a potential conflict. I don't know the answer to it yet.
That's usually not gonna be in the morning. Well, it could be, you could be
Could
tired.
be. Well, could have 6:30. What is July 1st like?
I'm out of
Oh,
town.
I'm out of town.
Okay.
You gonna be here for the board meeting? Or remote?
We'll find out. I'll give you coordinates.
Can we move backwards into June 17th?
I would have to do it remotely.
How about June 18th after the board meeting?
That whole week I'm up at my camper,
Okay.
so I would have to do it remotely. I'll be coming back for the board meeting.
What's it like for everybody else on the 17th if he did the remote?
I just gotta be careful that week because I got remote meetings every day of the week and they're all 2 to 3 hours
Okay.
for county.
Well, then let's.
Cause I got ATP 3 on the 20th.
We can move back into July then?
Yeah, we'll have to.
how about the 22nd?
I'm going to be out of town.
You'll be out? How
Yes,
about
sir.
the
On the
16th after the
22nd,
board
I'm
meeting?
out. So after board meeting on the 16th? And we could keep it just this one topic too.
Just Troy.
Just
Yeah,
this
just-
issue, right, yeah.
Do that?
Just
Yeah.
do it the 16th.
So 7/16 upon conclusion of county board, okay.
Good,
Got it.
good.
So the only thing else I have on my calendar is I had a note that it was time to schedule our next joint meeting of cities, townships, and the county. I had a note that our next one was gonna be in the summer, a summer meeting. Please correct me if I was wrong on that.
No, that's right.
That's right.
But we better revert back to you two because you guys know township meetings and then also the farmers and what they got going on in their fields.
Well, let me ask you this, and not that it's not important, do we have enough of an update to schedule it? Because we're gonna be running into fall township meetings also.
True.
that wouldn't include the cities, but I'm just trying to
Well,
think off the top of my head if we.
Maybe what we should do is reach out to the townships and ask them, do you got any concerns that you wanna talk over at the next meeting? We're trying to schedule the next meeting, and if nobody has any concerns, then we just maybe postpone it or something.
Or could we take it a step further and ask them if they have those concerns that we come prepared at the township fall meeting? As a
We could do
line
that.
item? Just a thought.
I do know that a bunch of the township people mentioned that our meeting is way better than the township meeting.
Sure, no, I understand.
Yeah, I've heard that
When
too.
is the next township association?
It'll be
It's in
sometime in
right?
September.
It's September.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be moving it because I think it's supposed to be like the
19th.
19th, and that's when fall policy is.
Yeah. And
So
it's
that-
also the fly-in, I think, out to DC.
And there's a conference I have.
Yeah, so we gotta talk about that too. Again, I wanna get to the point, do we have enough to share with them?
Yeah, well, and I was one that was a big proponent of this, but I think we've taken a different angle than what I was looking at it. I wasn't at first looking at it as everybody from every township and every board member and stuff like that. I was looking at more as a committee assignment to where it alternates and stuff like that every year, kinda like what we do right now, but to where you get together with all the townships and you just talk about things, not give updates. The updates are when we do the township deal, so we just did more of a glorified township.
Just more of an
Presentation.
open forum.
Open forum, correct.
That's all it is, just
That's
an
what I
open
was
forum.
looking at, but the last two meetings have been very good on
Yeah,
what we've been
yeah,
doing,
Yeah,
so.
And the city and the townships said that they'd rather have that because it was just an open forum and they could speak about anything. That was
Yeah.
good.
well, so then if that's the case, we set the time that works for us and whoever
Yeah.
can come, can come.
And
Instead
then
of
they do
trying to
their
match
township
them.
meeting at the same time. If they want. So,
that's usually
back to a date,
In the
right?
evening too, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
How about
I'm gonna say August would be better than September.
July too early?
Ooh.
Evening on July 22nd? I don't wanna say to get it over with.
I mean, I just my own,
Oh,
I will
sorry.
be out of town, yeah.
I think that's okay because I think it's more of a open forum, informal chat
I
session.
don't, right, you could say, I don't need to be there,
The
right?
reason I say July because we know what August and September are gonna be like.
Let's see. I could probably do 22nd.
Should we have it here this time? Instead of trying to coordinate something with the townships?
I mean, in here?
Yeah.
Should be pretty full if as many show up as last time.
Okay.
I don't know.
See, we were at Watab last time.
Yeah, there was.
Do we ask St. George? Or back to Watab or?
Minden's a little small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those two are our best options and.
And we gotta keep it to where people can get to them
Right,
too.
kinda nice rotating back and forth a little bit maybe.
I'm fine, if St. George would do it.
So could we check with St. George on the 22nd then and?
Sure, what
like
time?
a 6?
6:30.
Yeah.
St. George, all right. So we're gonna, okay, yep. I might be back in time then. I'm flying back from KC, so I might be back in time. I'll-
Decided not to drive?
Excuse me?
Nothing.
I'm flying this time.
Avis didn't have anything available for him.
Yeah. Check
No one-
Enterprise.
No one will rent
Rent to
me.
you anymore. He's blacklisted.
I might be gone, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might be hard to get us all there all the time.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know, and that's it, Mrs. Chair. So we got, let's see here, in summary, August 12th, 9 o'clock, the Human Services Community Health Board Cow. July 16th, upon conclusion, County Board, the jail staffing issue. And then August 22nd, 6:30 PM, St. George Town Hall, the joint meeting of cities, townships, and the county.
Mr. Chair, if I could add one, I hate, we keep kicking the can down the road, but are we doing a county meal?
No, we gotta do
I
that.
mean, we keep kicking this, we've talked about it for a couple months.
The cookout?
We are, we aren't, we better get it scheduled.
We missed the chicken buy, so now we're.
Well, I talked to Adam Hagan.
Oh, you did?
He'll let us buy.
Okay.
Something Commissioner Kapinski is willing to help with. So it may go around some of your schedule then.
Yeah, that's what I'm kinda concerned about. You look at our schedules, they've just been filling up like there's no tomorrow. Are we looking in August?
You're September, you're gone.
My August. Yeah, I'm just gonna, whatever works for the chair.
Tuesday, July 30th.
Just saying,
You're gone?
what say?
First day is the Benton County Fair.
Tuesday, July 30th.
Ooh, Benton County Fair.
Starts that day, yeah.
Anybody gonna be there for it? To start?
I'm still helping with our
Yeah,
wing
the
booth.
9th. Okay. 29th? Monday the 29th?
Yeah, I would have for sure a day and a half of prep if we do legs and wings and stuff like that.
And we don't have to do that, that's just,
If we do it the 29th, maybe we look at doing burgers and stuff like that again.
okay?
Just for the fact that I'll have a full day of cooking beforehand.
And we can certainly do it a different time, I'm just throwing that out.
No, I don't mind the July 29th. Shouldn't be hot.
Nah, it'd be wonderful weather.
But
right?
why don't we schedule that and let me see if I can get my right-hand person too.
Okay, so
And-
can we tentatively schedule?
Let's tentatively schedule it for the 29th, and maybe
Sure,
what
if
I'll
you need
do is
some help
all,
making something, I can talk to Kathy.
Yeah.
She likes that stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, of
So
course
what
we
I'm
won't-
thinking is maybe I'll do the 28th and I'll just cook them all up at our camper. And then we'll just stay overnight and come to the 29th.
So how about you have that conversation?
Yeah,
and
I'll do that.
confirm
Let's
at
schedule it
the
for the
next board meeting,
29th and we'll
but
figure it out.
At least we
Yep.
get something on the
Yep.
calendar.
Right, we won't announce it.
Subject to change.
We won't announce it
Yeah.
until we get better sense, yeah, it's
So
fine.
we get Jared's approval.
Okay,
Yeah. I think that could be a good date. It's just a matter of what we do.
Put that on the calendar.
And you think you can get?
I'm 99% sure. I'll verify that. I'll
Okay.
make a phone call, but hey, I already asked.
Yeah,
them
because
about
maybe
it.
I'll just take and do that on the 29th or 28th
Do
and,
you have to just pre-cook that chicken?
yeah, for 4 hours a batch,
How many batches?
probably 3.
I might be able to help you on that.
Why is that?
Kathy can do that.
Kathy can, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I'll ask her, but I'm sure she would.
We'll let you two chatty Cathy's.
Yeah.
Chat then.
we'll figure it out. I do it in my smoker trailer though.
Oh, okay,
That's where I cook them,
yeah.
so I can do quite a few pounds. How many pounds did we do last night?
Well, there's 40 pounds in a case, depending on if you want thighs or drumsticks. And I can tell you that there was just grower sales, the drumsticks were $12 for 40 pounds.
I'd say drumsticks are,
So were the thighs. though.
Yeah, they were, everything,
So-
yeah.
okay, we'll do that and, I mean, I'm sure we can get some good beef patties for Monty and
veggie,
no beef.
I've got some sawdust I'll throw in.
veggie.
Yeah, I think the 29th,
Sawdust
I think the
burger.
29th will
There
work. So, yeah, why don't you check on the chicken?
I will. I'll verify that.
Could we get a motion to set the cows?
Wait. Was there any desire to do a
We
road
need-
to, or I mean, a 5-year road construction plan?
Yes, there
We can
is.
attach that to an existing cow, or
Can we leave it till after budget season? I mean,
The 5-year road plan?
yeah.
I would say no, but that's my opinion. I think
Okay.
they need some direction.
Oh, I suppose, cause,
well, August or September timeframe, I guess is okay if we, yeah.
I
If
just
we're
know-
adopting it in end of September or October timeframe.
It's just
so-
that you know what August and September are already like.
I
so.
know.
The other thing would be setting a drainage subcommittee meeting
Yes.
too. I don't know if that happens with the cow motion or not.
No.
No, I think, that's something between these two board members.
Yeah.
Cow.
Oh, okay.
That's not a cow, no, it's technically, it's a special meeting of the.
We have a cow coming up that we could attach
I
it
didn't know
to.
this was a full-time position.
Correct. Turning into it.
Monty, the only thing I'm gonna warn everybody on is we're just into June and our weeks are gone for the whole
Right.
summer.
And there's no personal, you can't, like.
Summers are busy, yep.
Do we have an existing cow we can tag it to or not?
The next one is, Beth, you have the calendar with you?
I can pull that up too.
I literally have to retire to keep doing this job.
The next one is June. I'm sorry, when is it?
12.
Well, the 12th, we're in Chisago County, or excuse me.
The 10th.
The
So
10th,
the next one is
yeah.
June
I have the
12th.
12th.
You're right, yeah.
One on June 12th.
That's got, application services, data manager update, emergency.
Yeah.
EMS is coming, emergency management. I got something BEP.
ARPA funding for the city of St. Cloud, HRA cannabis legislation, logo ordinance, there's already 4 items on there.
Yeah.
You wanna add anything to it?
No.
No.
The 12th, no?
Well, I don't care. You can add whatever you want. By 2 o'clock, I'm out of here.
That's a lot.
How about after, we've got a cow on the 11th with the county attorney candidates.
Yeah, that might work. It's 8 to
Is
10.
that too soon? It's a week.
No.
How long is it gonna be?
Depends on how long we wanna make it be. I mean, it's basically.
Can we get something done in an hour?
I could give you a lot of information that for you to consider and we come back at a later meeting.
And you're probably gonna need
hash
2
out.
hours to talk to your two.
I have
County
3
attorney
meetings that
applicants.
morning.
Okay. So that's not a good time.
One at 9 that I probably won't make anyway, of course. Another one at 10:30.
Monday the 17th, did somebody say they're gone that week?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm okay too. If we come back, maybe at the next meeting, we can
Yeah.
look
No.
at it again.
We do gotta have.
I just think we gotta get it on the schedule because we're running out of days.
Do you see a lot of changes in?
Well, the basic it'd be the 5th year, so now we're adding 5th year. And the big thing for us is because now that's the year we can apply for federal surface transportation block grants that are always due end of December or first part of January. And those are always yeah, our 5th year of our 5-year plan will be 2029, and that's the next round of federal grant application. So that's the big thing is like we get something adopted by the fall, so we can attach that adopted plan to those applications, and we know which projects we should pursue, outside funding for as well. So that's the big thing is just
So when do
picking
you put
projects to
them,
add.
they're due at end of December or beginning of December?
Usually in December. The surface transportation block grant programs are usually due first week in January. So I'm bringing to the board a resolution of support in December.
Okay. You know what? I'm gonna be honest, there's gonna be some of these that some people aren't gonna be able to make.
Right.
We gotta make it
But road's
road's a big deal.
big deal. Yep, yep.
I know you don't like Thursdays and Fridays.
I will not.
Okay.
Fridays, no way. Unless I can be virtual.
Our budget presentations are the week of the 19th
Of August.
of August.
All day, I think that Monday.
Yeah.
And then
Half day
that
on
Wednesday.
Tuesday, on Wednesday, yeah.
How about after the board meeting on the 20th
Of,
August? Getting kinda late, but
That would work for me.
we have one in July we could stick it after.
Oh, we got the sheriff already,
Yeah.
something else after.
We don't, what, on the 16th, we don't?
Yeah, we do, we got sheriff's.
Oh, we just came up
We
with it.
just
didn't
did
we?
that one.
Okay.
July 16th, right, yeah.
Well, could we,
No,
You wanna
No.
put them together?
okay,
the sheriff's gonna take longer, do I think, and we gotta do due diligence on
We
this
do.
road.
Is everybody, oh, we got a DDA discussion on sex.
So,
Yeah,
and that's,
the other
that's
part.
scheduled for the second, right? Yeah, that's a pretty hefty topic,
Yeah.
right?
What do you feel about August, Chris? Pushing it?
Yeah, that's fine, I guess. So I don't foresee any changes. I don't
The
know,
6th to the
next
20th.
year for budgeting purposes.
How about the 6th? There's nothing on the 6th of August after the meeting?
Monty, can we be virtual for these?
Absolutely, right, of course. You can do, I think the
Anytime
board
you-
policy says four virtual cows, 4 virtual board meetings.
How about Tuesday the 6th after the board meeting? There's nothing on there that I can see.
Okay.
after what,
August 6th.
August 6th? We can do that.
That work for you?
All right, yeah, put it on my calendar.
Moved it up a little bit.
It's not you either, we're just, it's a
No, I
lot of
understand.
meetings.
You know, and for what it's worth, I think we're, on these times where we're having cows after board meetings, we'll do our best to try and keep those board meeting agendas short.
And maybe keep like no ditch authority after.
Yeah.
If, unless absolutely necessary,
No.
Or is
right?
that the date? Is that our ditch,
That's the 20th, you're
Okay,
right. So
good.
20th, we will definitely have a ditch
ditch
meeting.
authority? So then the
Right.
6th is good.
Right, presentations can just get delayed, things like
Yeah.
that, right, yeah, right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the community health board, that's only if we need it, we gotta.
That's only if you need it, right, yeah, right, on the 19th.
Yeah,
So I guess we'll find out as you get closer, do they
Yeah.
really need, really need it,
they really need
right?
it, yeah.
Okay. Motion to set the cows.
Hold on, yeah, motion?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. With that said, maybe you just let them know if they do, if they got a lot, we don't wanna turn them down, cause they've already got it set. But if they don't have a lot, we can use that spot
Use that day.
for
yeah.
another cow
True.
coming up.
True, yes.
Already kinda have
Yes,
something.
exactly, so,
Good point.
all right. Got a motion and a second to approve the calls, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, we're adjourned.